We're going to look at a Newsweek article. It was published March 14th, 2024. The author is Suzanne Blake, and the title of this is Student Loan Borrower Owes $300,000. The System is Predatory. A link to the original article will be put in the description box so you can read it uninterrupted, as this is going to have a lot of stops. All right, and I will share with you my thoughts throughout the article. Here we go. One parent who became a student loan borrower now owes more than $300,000 and says he fully expects to work until his 70s before the debt is cleared from his name. Texan father Tom Krosick, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing his last name, age 62, wanted the best for his children, which is why he took on more than $300,000 in Parent Plus loans so they could attend college. Yeah, let that sink in. Parents of dependent undergraduate students can use federal loans called PLUS loans to help pay for college or career school. His first child to attend college started in 2011, and the last left school in 2021. Over the span of 10 years, Krosick has been adding more and more debt to his name, so all could gain an education, and now the $300,000 number weighs on his future retirement plans. All right, folks, like I said, this is in the description box in case you would like to read the article without interruption. If you've been following this channel, probably even so much for just as a few weeks even, you know that I really disagree with Parent Plus loans. And the reason I disagree with Parent Plus loans, in other words, I don't think people should use them, is most of the time it seems they're being used in such a way that parents are just endlessly taking on debt at the risk of their own retirement. And when parents say things like, well, I'm willing, and I've read articles like this, okay? I'm willing to make sacrifices on my retirement, even if I have to struggle and whatnot, so my kids can have a brighter future. Well, here's the way I see it, okay? And I do not have children, all right? And I'm 58, just so you kind of know my perspective. I'm almost 58 in July. If you are struggling in your retirement where you can't feed and house and transport yourself to live your daily life because you've given all that money for your kids to go to college, guess what you wind up doing, in my opinion, in your older years? You now just indirectly tell your child, you're going to have to pay us back because mom and dad don't have a place to live. Mom and dad can't feed ourselves. Mom and dad don't have vehicles to even do things like get ourselves to medical appointments. It's almost like robbing from Peter to pay Paul. You're willing to rob from your own retirement account, okay? But now you become a burden in the future to your children. If I look at the economy and the way it is today, and if we take a really honest look at how things have shifted, I hate to say it, the concept of living better than our parents, forget it. Those days are done. I live in 840 square feet. I drive a Toyota Corolla. I gross $70,000 the last 2 years. This is how I live, so I don't get into debt. This is definitely not living better than my parents. My parents probably made about $25,000 a year teaching each. They had 4 kids, a house on the hill, all right, and 2 cars, camping vacations, an occasional air trip. Again, a family of 6, 4 kids. I think the idea that we are going to live better than our parents, it ended, I'm going to say Gen X, we ain't there. I'm Gen X. I mean, I guess, as someone who teaches school, all right, the only reason I'm able to make ends meet so well is I don't have kids. If I had to raise a family on a school teacher salary, I could never do it. So you got Krosick here, Tom, maybe I'll just call him Tom. That might be easier. Okay. I might interchange his name. All right. So you got Tom here, and I don't read anywhere. I think he doesn't say how many kids he's got. I think it's 2, 3, if I read the article correctly, because I do have to preview this article before I read it to you guys. I think he's got 2, 3 kids. All right. And he's basically saying, hey, you know what? I'll think about my retirement plan after I put my kids through school. Because look at the last paragraph right down here. Just look at you should see a little light that lights up down here. Okay. He says here he sent his kids through school, and now the $300,000 number weighs on his future retirement plans. That $300,000 number should have weighed before he even took out the loan. He should have responsibly, in my opinion, and I'm probably going to be a little bit more critical on this father, but you'll see as we go through the end here as to why I'm a bit more critical on him. Okay. He's just blindly taken out debt. We cannot blindly take out debt like this. We can't do it. It nearly cost me my retirement. I would have never had my $110,000 student loan forgiven if I hadn't stuck it out in middle school. And I still teach middle school, and it's my dream job, so I'm lucky, okay? Not teaching middle school per se, but I just love being a teacher. So he takes on this $300,000 debt, and now it's weighing on him. What lesson does this teach your children? You see, how can we criticize young people for blindly taking on student loans and just not understanding, the way, income-based payment, all of that stuff works? Yet look at what the adults are doing. The adults are doing the same thing, but we turn around and we tell young people, well, how screwed up you are. You just went and you took on $75,000 student loan for, you name that degree. And it doesn't matter if it's a liberal arts degree, STEM degree, it makes no difference. Okay. It's the fact that the kid took on that debt. That's the part that I'm looking at. And yet, what did this father do here? What did Tom Krasick do here? Oh, gee, he takes on $300,000. That's 3 of my condos. I purchased this condo in 2020 for $100,000. He took on 3 condos. And it seems to me, just from this first paragraph, from what I'm getting, he took this on just kid after kid after kid. That's why I said, I think he has 3 kids, I think. Okay. So he says the first child went to 2011. The last child just ended 4 years ago. And he took this over the span of 10 years. You mean to tell me during 10 years he never looked at that bill? Never looked at the bill and said, I'm going to be 10 years older and I need to figure out how to pay all these loans off. And don't forget, with Parent Plus loans, interest starts immediately. And loan forgiveness is next to impossible to get. You can get it, but it's very, very difficult. Tom says, I think I'm just going to call him Tom. Tom says, I have a great job with a good income, yet parent loans have destroyed my retirement and positioned me to need to work into my 70s to live. No, Tom. Parent Plus loans didn't destroy your retirement. You did it through the decisions you made as a parent wanting to get your kid through school. We have to really look at it for what it is. No, parent loans did not destroy it. I kind of look at it like this. I bought a Corolla in 2024. That car is 1 year old. I'm going to keep it for 9 to 9.5 years until the electric battery warranty runs out in 10 years. And I'm going to trade in before the warranty runs out on that battery. Okay. It would be like me deciding I wasn't going to get the Toyota Corolla, because people who've watched this channel know I really wanted the Camry. That's what I really wanted. But that would have been about an extra $15,000 to get the Camry. Okay. I could have bought the Camry. I could have found myself in more debt than I expected. Is it fair for me to say, well, you know what? It's the Camry that totally destroyed my budget. It's the Camry that did it. I'm now going to have to work longer. I'm going to have to make more payments because the Camry is what did it to me. See, here, Tom, and you're going to notice a pattern with Tom, and I'm not going to say what I think that pattern is. I want to see if you come up with the same pattern that I come up with about Tom and his attitude and his behavior towards these Parent Plus loans. Okay. So he says, I have a great job with good income. Have we not learned, people? It is not what you make. It is what you keep. I don't have a great income. Okay. My teacher pay is $63,000 a year. I get $70,000 because I work a little part-time childcare job after school. That's the reason I get $70,000. Otherwise, my teacher pay is $63,000. So Tom says, I have a great job with good income, but it depends upon how you're spending it. I can take my teacher pay, $63,000, which is a lot less, okay, than probably what Tom makes, because I don't think they say how much Tom makes. But nobody would consider teacher pay to be great income. But I keep more than what Tom keeps. And I think that sometimes is what happens when people start to make more money. If they make a lot of good money, they tend to think of it, not everybody, of course, and we know that, but people who struggle with money tend to look at that higher income as, oh my goodness, it's lifestyle creep and they can have whatever they want. Tom collected student loan dollars, okay, because he wanted to put all these kids through school. I want you to think about it. He collected this debt over 10 years. And not once, it appears, during that 10 years, did he ever stop to go, wow, I'm at 100,000. I'm at 200,000. Wow, I'm at 250. It's climbing. No point he felt the need to stop. And sometimes If parents aren't careful, yeah, the second or third child fourth child, fifth child can really get screwed because all the money was spent on the first and maybe second kid. That's why parents have to be careful about that. Tom is not alone in his plight. The interest rate on these loans can really add up, and the limited option for income-driven payment plans or forgiveness programs leaves families in a tough spot, according to finance expert Michael Ryan. Okay, yes, we do know the interest rates on Parent Plus loans can add up, and we know that they start immediately. And because there is limited options for like income-based, it's true, it leaves family in a financially tough spot. But remember what I've told you about income-based. What do we know about income-based on this channel? Does income-based solve your problem? No, it just makes your loan bigger and bigger. See, here's the thing. Parents and students, their children, it's really a darn if you do and darn if you don't. I have to watch the YouTube moderations, okay? It really is. It's a no-win spot because it doesn't matter. School is so freaking expensive that for anyone to go, the only way, unless you're wealthy, the only way most people can quote-unquote pay back the loan is to pay less than the actual interest, but you're never actually paying back the loan. In other words, you take on a student loan that you cannot get yourself out of, you are in it for the rest of your life. And how many people right now, they're in student loan for the rest of their life for a degree that they don't use, and they probably didn't really ever want it, and they're doing something else totally unrelated now. You got to look at student loans have a longer commitment than raising a child does. Raising a child to 18, you can go, okay, you're 18. Student loans, straight to the grave. I've worked with clients who have put retirement on hold or taken on second jobs to cover plus loan payments. It's heartbreaking to see such an intense burden placed on parents who simply wish to see their child achieve their dreams. Okay. Putting a retirement on hold and taking on a second job. I don't want to sound insensitive. These are choices. These are choices that parents can make. And if you make such a choice to go, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and take on a second job, it seems to me that smart people would make sure that the second job, whatever pay that is what they contribute towards their child's education and nothing more. Because I think it's great. Fine. If you want to take on a second job, fine. But see, Tom's mistake, from what I can tell from this article, okay, Tom just took on $300,000. Geez, that's a huge amount. Oh my God, that's huge. Okay. Tom just willy-nilly took on $300,000. Whereas it seems to me a smarter parent would go, okay, I want to help you through school. I'm going to go ahead and do a second job. Anything that I make for that second job, that's what will be used towards your schooling. You get nothing more. That's what you get. See, in my eyes, it's not a crime, and it doesn't make a parent morally bankrupt because they tell the kid, this is the limit. This is what I can afford to give you, if I can even afford to give you anything. And it's my belief, my conspiracy theory. Okay. Every now and then I fall into the conspiracy theory trap just for fun. Wouldn't it be interesting if all that marketing and advertising and stuff, brochures and all that try to make parents feel bad because they can't send their kid to their dream school, or they can't, put as much towards college, if anything towards college, as they would like? There's a club out there somewhere that's making parents feel bad about it. And you see, I don't think parents should feel bad about it. My mom had limits on what she could afford. This is what I can afford. These are the limits. Those limits were well established before I got to college. I had no surprises. And I think that's something that parents can do as a favor to their child. Don't wait till the last minute to tell your child that. I don't think you need to notify them in middle school, but I would say by the time they hit 10th grade, they need to kind of start knowing what the game plan is for college, if they're going to go that route. Or maybe what the game plan is for a trade school, whatever. They need to know. But, we can sit there and go, oh, it's heartbreaking that the burden that these parents take on. Okay, that's fine if the parent wants to take on that burden, but if you're voluntarily doing it, it's kind of like this, okay? There are stories out there, and they kind of just make me shake my head. I'm a teacher, all right? I'm just so excited because I enter my 20th year this fall. So I'm very excited about that. But there are teacher stories I have read, okay? And it'll be something like, and this teacher spends $500 a month on their classroom. Where the bejesus do you need to spend $500 a month on your classroom? There comes a point where I can tell, and I've been in the business 19 years, okay, full time, all right, teaching English language arts. And I have literally read stories where some teacher will say, and I spent $5,000 this year supplying my kids with stuff. Are you kidding me? We've got kids in third world countries that can sit on a bench and literally, it's a piece of paper and a pencil and that's it. So sometimes, but sometimes I think there are teachers that like to buy all these extras because they feel it learns and riches. And that's great if they have the budget, if they want to do it. But I don't think I'm a worse teacher. I don't think it makes me, cruel, irresponsible because one, I don't have the money. And two, I don't want to spend the money that I do have to make all these extras for the classroom that go way beyond what the district needs or what is even required. And I think sometimes with Parent Plus loans, it's my opinion at times that parents, I think some of them feel guilty because they can't give their kid everything. So instead of saying, no, this is the limit, they just go, well, whatever, I'll take on all the debt I can, and then I will deal with it later. To me, it's kind of the same thing because you know what? A teacher can feel guilty too. Believe me. And the first few years that I taught, it's like, oh my gosh, I need to provide this. And I want to get this and that. And then I started to go, wait a minute. I'm going to go broke. I'm going to go broke if I try to supply things for my classroom that are emotionally based. I am literally going to go poor. And so I had to put a stop to it. Occasionally, I'll buy a treat here and there, but I don't have the budget. So you see, where we are responsible for other people, I'm responsible for the lives of the children that I teach. I'm responsible for giving them an environment that they want to be in. Parents feel responsible for helping their child grow up, and they want them to have the best academic and educational and financial advantage possible. I get it. Okay. But I've learned you have to put a stop to it and that it's okay. And my mother, thank God, taught me that. My mother was also a teacher. Okay. So moving on, we're going to skip some of this stuff here. Okay. Tom Krosick is hoping lawmakers can take action to address the growing issue of Parent Plus loans following parents into retirement. Let me read the next paragraph here. Krosick even wrote a letter to a Senator John Cornyn. Your thoughts are a start, but don't go far enough to fix a broken predatory system stacked heavily against the middle class, he said in the letter. Okay, let's back up here. I'm using my little lights when I click the button. I actually can't see the lights when I'm filming this, so I just hope you can see them. Okay. He says, Tom is saying he hopes lawmakers will take action to address the growing issue of Parent Plus loans following parents into retirement. I'm going to give Tom a piece of reality. Okay. And I don't mean this to be cruel or insensitive in any way. It's just to be honest. It's not the law's job. It is not government's job to make sure that your Parent Plus loans don't follow you into retirement. Tom, that's your job. It is not the government's job to make sure that Parent Plus loans don't follow you into retirement. And here's the thing. Tom may not want to admit this. You know how when you watch the movie, you clicks her heels 3 times, Little Red Shoes. What is it? The Wizard of Oz. And all she had to do was click her heels 3 times and she could have been back home in Kansas. Tom, all he had to do to keep his Parent Plus loans from following him to retirement was he had to say, no more. That's it. Each kid gets $20,000. I will take on $60,000 total to pay off. I don't know if he has 2 or 3 kids. He clearly has more than one. Okay. I think he has 3. All right. That's it. See, Tom could have clicked his red heels. I know that's a visual there. Okay. 3 times. And those Parent Plus loans did not have to follow him into retirement. He was not forced in any way. Just because you say you feel forced doesn't mean you actually are. Tom felt forced. Tom felt like, oh my goodness, I just had to do it. But here's something I propose, all right? Is it possible that people will sometimes say, I felt forced to do it because it's what they really wanted to do and they needed an excuse? And they couldn't come up with an excuse on their own because part of their brain said, I really shouldn't do this. It's too much money. So they're looking for a scapegoat of an excuse. So the excuse becomes, well, I felt forced to do it. Think about that. See, sometimes when we find ourselves in a financial situation where we are spending more than what we want, and I've brought this up before, like when I do my Dave Ramsey commentaries and when I do my TikToks, all right? We look for something anything that can help us justify, I'm putting that quote, to justify, all right, that we should have it. Well, I have to have the really big SUV because we have to have our kids travel safely. Okay. I have to go to this really expensive school because after all, it is number one in the country for my subject, even though the school is way beyond you and your parents' budget. You see? So when Tom says here, okay, he says that, where is it? Where was I just at? He's hoping lawmakers take into action addressing the growing issue of Parent Plus loans into retirement. Tom, that's your job. That's your household budget. The government did not come into your household budget and say, Tom, start spending 300 grand. Guys, I want you to think of how much money that is. That is a house, even in today, 2025. Okay, that is a house. Yes, it may be today a small house. It may not even be a neighborhood you want to live in. Who knows? But it's still a piece of property. So what Tom basically did was he bought himself a second piece of property and he did not budget for it. It is not the lawmaker's job. Let's see here. While Tom acknowledges he makes a good income, he says the current free application for federal student aid program doesn't take into account his already burdensome $300,000 in Parent Plus loans. This made no sense to me. Okay? He says the current free application for federal student aid, okay, doesn't take into account his already burdensome $300,000 Parent Plus loans. Who created that burden? I believe Tom Krosick created that burden. He says the current free application doesn't take into account. Why does it have to take into account? It's like this, okay? All right. Let's say I want to go get a second residence. Okay, school teacher, $63,000. We're just going to pretend here. Let's say I wanted to get a second residence and it's clear that I don't have the money to do it. I do not have the money to get, in real life, I don't have the money to get a second residence, but let's just pretend that I did. Okay. So I go out and I go to a mortgage company and I say, I want a second residence. And they look at me and they say, well, Carrie, your budget is really tight. We can try to get you into one. Okay. And let's say they go ahead and they do the numbers and I look at them and I go, whoa, I can't afford that mortgage. And they go, well, your budget isn't that great. And this is the best we can offer you. If you want a second residence, you're going to have to pay this month, this monthly amount for a mortgage. And I sit there and I say to them, but wait a minute. You can't charge me that much for a mortgage. You haven't considered the fact that I already have a mortgage. So you need to make that number lower. You need to make that second residence cheaper for me. You see? Am I being clear here? Tom is blaming. Remember what I said to you at the beginning. I want you to see if you see a pattern here. Tom believes that the opportunities he should have should all be based on his current debt lifestyle. His current debt lifestyle is that he takes out all the Parent Plus loans he wants to $300,000. And then when more opportunity comes along, in this case, the free application for federal student aid, well, that doesn't fit into Tom's already full bucket. You see? You can't go to somebody else and say, I want more. And then when they say, okay, here's more, but here's the price it's going to be. Then you turn around and go, well, wait a minute, that's not going to work. That's too expensive. You've got to look at what I've already got for debt. Whose problem is that? That's my problem. That's Tom's problem. I hope that makes sense. In the eyes of FAFSA, my middle income makes me rich, Tom said. The system is predatory. Very simply, if I do not sign up for my Parent Plus loans, my kid is screwed. No option unless they try to emancipate themselves from us. Krosick said universities play a major part of the problem, consistently increasing costs each year. As he says, they are motivated to only get a kid in, keep him in, and keep the money flowing in. One of Krosick's children racked up 3 years of college classes in debt only to end up leaving education. Let's break this apart. Go get a water break if you need. We're breaking this apart. This is what I do on this channel. We're going to break this apart. Okay, let's look at the first paragraph, okay? He acknowledges he makes a good income. Okay, we already did that part. Let's move on. Okay, so in the eyes of FAFSA, my middle class income makes me rich. The system is predatory. Let me ask you a question. Is something predatory because we don't understand it? In other words, not understanding how something works or failing to take responsibility, does that necessarily in and of itself make something predatory? My answer to that is no. Just because I didn't understand how income-based payments work did not in and of itself make it predatory. I think what happens is that education is such an it's so emotionally charged, even more so than cars and houses. It's educating your child. It is so emotionally driven that people throw out the word predatory immediately because they either did not understand it by choice. In other words, they chose not to do any research on it, or they generally just didn't understand it. Because it is possible not to understand something. And what's that phrase? Sometimes you don't even know what to ask because you don't have enough information to know something. Okay. So he says here, very simply, if I do not sign up for my parent loans, my kid is screwed. That is not true. Lots and lots of kids, millions of kids throughout the world have never had a parent take on a Parent Plus loan, and those kids are absolutely fine and successful. Tom goes on to say, no options unless they try to emancipate themselves from us. Hyperbolic much, Tom? Hyperbolic much? Oh, gee, unless my kids just totally dump me and leave me. You see, what I seen throughout this article, and maybe you see it too, Tom blames everybody but who? Tom blames everybody but Tom. It's the government's fault. It's Congress's fault. It's going to become the school's fault. It's everybody's fault but Tom. See, Tom is, in my opinion, and why I was really wanted to share this article, okay? Tom wants to send all his kids through college. We get that. But what Tom doesn't want to do is take any accountability on placing limits and looking at his own lifestyle and looking at his own retirement plan and telling his kids, halt, this is as far as I can help you. I can't do any more for you. See, Tom's writing on, quote, I make a good income. No, Tom, apparently your income really sucks. And as a middle school teacher, I'm making more than you are. Hypothetically. Heck, even by math right now. I almost tend to think that Tom is a bit entitled. See, we always use the word entitled for the young students. Guess what? Parents can be entitled too. Tom strikes me as someone who's entitled. He says, in the eyes of FAFSA, oh, now it's FAFSA's fault. Okay. My middle class income makes me rich. The system is predatory. No, Tom just doesn't wish to understand it. And I just love this line, no options unless they try to emancipate themselves from us. Well, then, Tom, you need to sit down. You need to talk to kids whose parents have not been able to contribute a dime towards their college education to ask them how they did it. How'd they make it? They turned out successful. They turned out professional. They turned out doing the trade or job or whatever it is that they wish to do. See, Tom really is looking for scapegoats as to why he's in the financial position he's in. I personally don't feel sorry for Tom, have to say. Okay. He says here that the universities play a major part of the problem. Of course they do. Yeah, they keep raising the tuition. But why universities keep raising the tuition? Because the government backs up the loans. If you're made at a restaurant, if we went to Chili's and we said, hey, Chili's, it doesn't matter how good your meal is or is not. It doesn't matter, what you serve. We're going to back up everything you sell. All you have to do is sell it. Okay, we're going to sell a cheese enchilada for $1,000. If you can get someone to buy it, we'll back it up. This is why the federal government needs to get out of the student loan business. It needs to go back to where the colleges sell it and have to be held accountable for it. And the colleges, in my opinion, need to take the loss as well. Colleges don't have to take a loss on anything, or a very minimal loss. Not enough to make the colleges go, gee, I think perhaps we should lower the prices. Somebody wrote on my channel the other day, I can't remember who it was, so I do apologize, but they made the comment about how silent the universities and colleges, not really college, because I think a community college, but the universities, how silent the universities have been in all this. Oh, of course, the universities want you looking the other way. It's kind of like, if you're standing next to somebody and you don't really want to acknowledge them, you don't look at them. All right. You just kind of keep your eyes focused in another direction. One of Krasik's children racked up 3 years of college classes to only end up leaving education. If you watched a video that I did just the other day, okay, and what did I say in that video? I said, gee, how many parents are taking on Parent Plus loans for their kid to drop out of school? And I know parents may sit there and go, well, that's never going to happen to my child. Trust me, as a middle school teacher, it can happen to anybody's kid. 40% of students, I think it is, okay, don't quote me quite, but I do believe it's around 40% of students will drop out of school. So Tom Krasik has a kid who ended up who wound up dropping out. Okay, and continuing on the dropout topic, okay, after a year, it was clear he was struggling. This is the kid who dropped out. The guidance from the counselors, keep trying, it will come. The first 2 years are the hardest. Why did we keep him in one more year? Predatory practices and manipulation. Let's stop. Once again, Mr. Tom. Whose fault is it? Oh, now it's the guidance counselor's fault. You see, I would have more respect for Tom if he said, in spite of all this, suggestions and stuff from other people, I understand that, the buck stops with me. It is his checkbook. FAFSA, Congress, the guidance counselors, his own kids, they don't have access to it. Unless, of course, you're on a May 5th. You didn't pay your student loan deadline, but that's another story. Think about it, though. So Tom says it's now the guidance counselor's fault. Tom said he was led astray by others' view that only bad parents wouldn't let their children fight through an education they were struggling to make work. Oh, now it's other people's fault as well. Just simply called others. Everybody's fault but Tom. Tom has $300,000 in parent loans. He's now, after 10 years of collecting this debt, it's now sitting square in front of him. He's crying over his bill, going, I need somebody to blame. Now, here's my thought, Tom. It says the guidance counselors said to keep trying. The first 2 years are the hardest. Why did we keep him in one more year? Well, I would say because, Tom, you didn't want to take accountability. And of course, someone like Tom would go, well, yes, I did take accountability. I was trying to be a good parent, keep them in. Look, any parent understands when you see your kid is struggling, any smart parent understands school is a business. It is a business first. Before your kid walks into that door, it is a business. So Tom should have had his parent business hat on, said, son, it looks like after a year you're struggling. I think we need to take a break. I think we need to regroup. And in between that, Tom should have also been looking at his Parent Plus loan bill going, wow, that's getting awfully high. You see? Put in the comments if you feel sorry for Tom. Please put in the comments. Do you feel sorry for Tom? Do you feel Tom was doing his best? Or do you believe Tom is simply using everybody as a scapegoat? And no, you do not have to agree with me at all. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, talks about the school, marketing placement. Okay, here we go. Another one of his children was lied to by his university. Oh, we've got more people at fault. All right, so let me repeat that. Another of his children was lied to by his university, Tom said. The school marketed its placement program in his chosen industry, but he soon realized only short-term job gigs were available. Whose fault is this? Did Tom sit down with his child and say, okay, so your school says these are the available jobs. Let's see what we can find on our own. It is okay to do your own research. It is okay to go find people outside of who the university knows to ask questions. It is okay. So now, see what Tom is teaching his kids is he's teaching his kids that their failure is all going to be somebody else's fault. See? So I guess this kid, his child, okay, first we have the child that drops out. Okay, that's one. Then we've got this child here who was told they'd get a job, but it turns out all they can do is gig work. Makes me wonder what type of job they were going for. Just a thought, okay? There is a student loan crisis, Tom said. It affects students and parents. There is a college cost crisis. Many students and parents are priced out of college in this current funding system. That is a quote from Tom. Yeah. Many parents are priced out of college. And because you're priced out of college, it is a fact of life. Are you going to go screw up your retirement so you can price yourself out of retirement too? Not trying to be cruel. If you follow this channel enough, you will know I am very passionate about helping people stay out of debt, helping people keep out of the mistakes that I made. I almost was forced to retire with a $110,000 student loan that would have just grown and grown and grown over the next 10 years because I retire in 11 years. That's all that bill would have done. And I understand how close I came to having my time. It wouldn't have been destroyed, but it would have definitely been impacted. We're taking 15% out of everything that comes into your house, so to speak. Due to Tom's past experience, he says he will not be signing any more Parent Plus loans for any of his 3 remaining children looking to attend college. Jesus, Tom, how many kids do you have? Hold on here. He will not be signing on any more Parent Plus loans for any of his 3 remaining children. So, okay. I missed this. He's got 5 kids. Are you telling me that he spent $300,000 for 2 kids? I'm just absorbing this for a minute. Oh, I totally forgot about that. Well, good, Tom. You probably should be signing any more Parent Plus loans. Have you got it now? Has it gone through your brain? Remember I say earlier, the last kids get screwed over, right? So they've just got to watch one of their kids get money and drop out of school. I assume the other one got money and made it through school. And now he's got 3 more kids. Now I want you to think about this. What would happen if he had just said every kid gets $20,000 for college? Okay, he says he's got 3 more kids looking to attend college. Every kid gets $20,000. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That'd be $100,000. He said this happened over 10 years. That tells me there's an age span here between the kids. And heck, half it wasn't even $20,000. Okay, everybody gets 10 grand. That's what you get. Do with it what you wish. That is your gift at 18. It has to go towards college tuition or it has to go towards a trade. Some sort of trade school, beauty school, mechanic school, whatever. Wow, I forgot that. My retirement is hosed, Tom said. I hope to be able to stay employed in my 70s. Who hosed your own retirement, Tom? Who turned on the water sprinkler and drowned it? Who did that, Tom? I believe you did that to yourself, and so why should we feel sorry for you? The fact that now we understand he's got 5 kids. Tom, now I understand why you have 5 kids. There's not much planning involved for anything. I'm going to leave it at that, okay? Yeah, your retirement is hosed, and who did it? Not FAFSA, not the Parent Plus loan, not the guidance counselor 1 for 1 kid, not guidance counselor 2 for another kid, okay? Not the government programs. Who took the hose and put it on blast and hosed out your retirement? You did. And now that you're aware that your retirement is hosed and sunk, you're now looking for someone to blame. So when all your other friends are getting done and retiring, and doing their part-time hobbies, because I intend to work even in retirement. I can't just sit at home. Oh my God. And I intend to have my YouTube channel at retirement. Yes, this channel is around for the rest of my life. All right. Seriously, Tom, who screwed up your retirement? Look in the mirror. So Tom says, he talks about Joe, but I don't care about the political stuff. More political stuff. He says there needs to be relief for students and parents who are victims of the predatory pricing and loan practices of the education system, which includes the government with FAFSA and student loans. Okay, we agree that the student loan system is messed up. We agree that it feels predatory. Not that it's necessarily predatory, it feels predatory. But we also agree that it feels predatory to us because, like I said earlier, we put so much of our emotion into it. And when things don't agree with our emotion, when things don't agree with what we want, we are looking for a scapegoat. We want to send our kids through school. I don't have kids, but I wanted to go to school so I could be the best teacher possible. So I took on a bunch of student loans that I couldn't afford. I never sat down and did the math before I took on the loans. I was never realistic at how I would be aging throughout the loan borrowing process. You take out parent loans when you're 50 and you say, oh, I'm going to take out a Parent Plus loan at 50 and I'm going to pay on it for 20 years and I'm going to have no problem keeping my income exactly as it is and everything else. Well, between 50 and 70, you think a few bumps in the road might happen. Now, how is that Parent Plus loan that you took out when you're 50 going to square into your lifestyle? You see, we got to look long term. I failed to do these things. Tom failed to do it. Basically, what Tom did was he bought himself a second piece of property that he cannot afford. How long does it take the average person to pay off a $300,000 home? How long does it take? People have 30-year payment plans for $300,000 homes, right? This is why Tom is feeling hosed. He took out a loan for another house. Tom says if he's unable to get any relief in the future, he looks ahead to his future and he questions whether he will be able to enjoy his last days alive. Well, Tom, let's back up, if it pleases the court. I'd like everyone to remember that Tom took out $300,000 for kid 1 and 2. And I'm still just blown away because I forgot. Okay. I generally forgot he has 3 other kids. So Tom has 5 kids and Tom was acting like he is a Hollywood movie star banking it with lots and lots of money and he can just send them anywhere. And Tom says he makes good money. I don't know what good money is. He never told us what good money is. If Tom says he makes $120,000 a year with 5 kids under your belt, I don't think that's as good of a money. Technically, you could say then I make more money. I've grossed $70,000 the last 2 years and I have no kids. So what's good money? I think they should have said what Tom's good money is. Because the fact that he has 5 kids and clearly did not know how to budget for them. So he says if he's unable to get relief in the near future. So here's my message to Tom. Tom, here's how you get relief in the future. You're going to create that relief. You're going to have to do it. Government's not going to do it, nor is anyone else. You need to create that relief. And if he's looking for Congress and the government, it's not going to happen. Or I could suggest that Tom become a teacher, work in that for 10 years, and then the Parent Plus loan can be forgiven. Because I believe they do that. Don't quote me on, but I believe with Parent Plus loans, if you as the parent are also in public service, that is an option. Tom says, I want a future for my kids and their kids. I'd like to retire at some point with my wife and enjoy our last days on this planet before we go home. Okay, Tom. Well, shuffle along. Need to start working. Yeah, I need to shuffle along and get to the gym. Talk to you guys later. So this article is by Suzanne Blake. Here we go. John, a 62-year-old father living in Northwest Ohio, is one of the millions of parents that took on a Parent Plus loan in hopes of giving his daughter a better life. Now unemployed, he says he'll likely be paying them off well into his 80s. So John is 62, and he's looking at about a 25-year payment plan. Borrowers who took on Parent Plus loans remain one of the student debt holders with the highest interest rates, but they've been largely left out of any student debt forgiveness plans under Biden's administration. John, who preferred to be only known by his first name, told Newsweek that he lost his job as an electrical estimator and test technician and now fears the debt will hang over his head well into his 80s. John was initially convinced to take on the loan in his name after a community college counselor told him and his daughter she should attend a state school based on her academic achievements. All right, so let's go ahead and pause. Parent Plus loans, I believe, are incredibly predatory. I believe that the only more predatory loan than a Parent Plus loan are payday loans. Now, I've done stories on payday loans, and I will attach one of them at the end of this video. Hopefully, I remember. All right. Also, along with this video of John being 62 with Parent Plus loans going into his 80s, on Friday this week, so just about 3 days ago, I did a video on people in their 80s and 90s with student loan debt. I will attach that also at the end. It is my belief that when you are in your later years, anything past 50, you should not be taking on debt. You should be getting rid of debt. Yet time and time we see people well into their 50s, 60s taking on debt. It is fine to take on the debt if you have the money to pay off the debt. In other words, you have enough stocks, bonds. Maybe you live in a big enough house that you don't even mind downsizing and you could pay off the debt. But that's not who we're addressing. We're addressing people who are struggling like John is, who are struggling like the 80 and 90-year-old people I talked about on Friday that I will link at the end. Those are the people we are talking about, the financially vulnerable in the population. They are, in essence, your grandparents and your great-grandparents with student loan debt. And it says here, he took on the Parent Plus loan, and it says that they've been left out of student debt forgiveness under Biden's administration. And of course, we know this was a year ago. Okay. At this point, pretty much anything the Biden administration has done, with promising you your 10, 20,000, promising your student loan debt, as we all know the current results. Okay. It didn't go well. I'm blessed with a brilliant daughter, John told Newsweek. She graduated in the top 10 students in her class. Once looking at their college options, John took on the payment so that his daughter could live on campus and pay for tuition and textbooks. They saw her transcript and said, "You've got a 4.0 GPA student and you're not going to the state university for a bachelor's degree?" So she hooked us up with the admissions at the state university, John said. She finished in 4 years with a 3.97 GPA and good to go. John ended up with 4 separate Federal Plus loans with a beginning balance of just under $37,000. So his 4 loans total $37,000. At the time, John said he had a credit score in the top tier and could have qualified for a 3% private bank loan instead of the 7.99% rate he faces now. So, in other words, the bank loan in this case would have been a better deal for him than going with the federal Parent Plus loan. Let me tell you something. Parent Plus loans, all right, don't have the same protections and benefits as regular student loans. And I genuinely believe that Parent Plus loans, to me, what makes them so predatory is a lot of parents are not aware, okay, that when you take out Parent Plus loans, nobody's checking to see if you can pay off the bill. Hey, does this sound familiar? Just like when college students, the 18, 19, 20-year-olds take out their loans, nobody's checking to see if they can pay the bill. A parent can take out as much Parent Plus loan as they want, up to the limit of, I believe, the annual cost of that college. Nobody is looking at the numbers to see if you can pay that bill off. Oh, and I should also say, in this case here, okay, so he's looking at, let's just round it off. He's looking at an 8% interest rate because he went with the federal government. This is the other thing. Most of the time, and I would say this almost always, okay, the student taking out the loan, the one going to school, stay with federal loans. I personally don't believe in private loans. I just don't think you should do private loans. They're horrible, okay? They're predatory also. Federal loans, with the exception of Parent Plus. In the case of Parent Plus, I think for a lot of parents, it might actually be easier to go with the bank loan because of the significantly lower interest rate. But there is a caveat. It doesn't happen a lot, but there are opportunities for parents to have a parent, public service loan forgiveness. But for Parent Plus, it's hard and it's difficult to get. And I would not count on it. So if I were making the decision, he should have gone with the bank loan for like 4% versus the government loan at 8%. And don't forget, when you take out a Parent Plus loan, that interest starts immediately. There's no deferment or anything like that. Okay, there's no, subsidized and unsubsidized? There's no subsidized loan where the government picks up the interest while you're in school. That does not exist. That picture has nothing to do with this article. The plan was to get the debt paid off in 25 years. Oh, 25 years. I want you to stop and think about this, okay? That is more years than it takes to raise your child. It takes you 18 years to raise a child to legal age. Yet it takes you 25 years to pay off educating them for 4 years in a college, so to speak. Some people take 5 years. John had paid $20,000 of the debt until he became ill with a life-threatening illness a few years before the pandemic. That's when he paused his payments for a year due to medical expenses. During the pandemic, federal borrowers saw all payments pause, but now John is facing down $3,500 still owed, despite already making $20,000 in payments for the initial $37,000 loan. During the pandemic, John also lost his job and his financial situation quickly derailed. All right, let's take a look at this step by step. Okay, so his initial bill was for, I think it was 40,000. I think he said 39,000, but we're just going to round it off to 40,000. Yeah. The initial balance was 37,000. Let's just round it off to 40,000. Sorry about moving the screen. I'm aware it makes people dizzy, so I try not to move it. Okay. All right. So he's paid $20,000 towards that bill, but the bill's gone up. And why is the bill gone up? 1, 2, 3, because he wasn't even making the minimum that you need to get. What is it? You need to pay the interest, much less get into the principal. Okay. So that's why his bill has gone up. $20,000. And again, people, I've said it. Okay. We don't do this with cars. We don't do this with houses. Okay. If you make every single payment on your car and you schedule it for 5 years, it will be done. But if you call in, you say, oh, you know what? I can't, that's too much for 5 years. I can't afford that. I'd like you to take this $800 car payment, knock it down to $300. They're going to look at you and say, no, we're just going to go ahead and take the car. But with student loans, it's a different thing, because student loans, there's nothing for them to take. And there's a huge advantage also because it's backed by the government. All right. So they know that, hey, you know what? We'll have you pay less than the interest, because it doesn't matter what your bill is. The government's going to guarantee the loan. The government's going to make sure that the bank and or school doesn't lose any money. All right. So I just want you to think about 25 years, and he's made $20,000 in payments on this $37,000 loan. We really need to get under control the interest. It's the interest that's the problem. It is. It's the interest. But yet, let's get technical. The interest on a student loan, if you really get down to it, is no better or worse than any other interest. The only reason I believe, okay, well, there are technicals, like I just explained. Part of the technical reasons that student loan interest seems so horrible compared to the rest of it is because we are allowed to pay less than what it takes to actually pay the loan off in 10 years. If we find that $2,000 a month payment is just too high, or that $1,100, $900, whatever the payment is, they'll knock it way, way down, so ridiculously down that now we can never pay the loan off. So we sit, then we go, oh man, the student loan is worse. It's actually not worse than any other loan. The laws just allow it to be played differently. So it seems worse. But if you actually call your student loan provider and you say, hey, I want to pay this loan off in 10 years, they'll give you the number. And if you're sitting there going, oh my God, I can't pay that. Well, the time, and I take responsibility on this also, the time we should have looked at that was before we took the loan out. That's when we should have looked at it, instead of just going on a wing and a prayer. And I'm guilty of that too. All right. So guilty as charged over here. My bangs are doing their own thing today. I got done working out, so they're just doing their own thing. Okay. It also says here that he lost his job and his financial situation quickly became derailed, and he's 62. All right. You've heard me say, young people, think before you take on voluntarily and say, oh, I'm going to pay on for 10, 15, 20 years. I want this school so much. I want this degree so much. I'll take whatever it takes to pay on it. And what do I say? I say to you, what else do you think is going to happen in your life over the next 10, 15, 20 years, where pretty soon that student loan, that's just that little pest, okay, that you want to get rid of, that you want to spray away, you can't. So what starts to happen? You ignore that and you bring other more important things to the forefront. A lot could happen in 10, 15, 20 years, clearly. So John here, and this is the situation with a lot of parents taking out Parent Plus loans. They're doing it because they love their children so much, but at the same time, a lot of parents sink themselves in the process. And as we know, parents do not have the same amount of time to make up time like their children have. I genuinely believe that when a parent hits that big 5-0, you should not be taking on debt. And there is nothing wrong, in my opinion, saying to your child, I'm sorry, mom and dad, we don't want you taking care of us in our old age. So we need to start planning our retirement. We cannot afford to co-sign Parent Plus loan or otherwise carry on additional college debt. Because if we did that, that could potentially put you as our child in a financial situation of having to care for us. And we absolutely will not allow that. See? That's kind of how it was explained to me. Not with quite that much detail, but close enough. My mother had no problem saying, this isn't happening. And we understood that from the get-go. Okay. And what's happened here? He's lost his job. Anybody plan on losing their job? And what's the other thing with the job? He's over the age of 50. Let's be honest. Let's have a real honest heart-to-heart moment. Okay. Think about how long this Parent Plus loan is that you want to take out. How old are you? Oh, so you're going to be in your 50s and 60s and you think you're going to compete with the 20, 30, and even 40-year-olds. Not likely. And you'd think that if you get laid off, you might not have to take a job cut a pay cut. Very likely. These are things that I've always said it's easy to sign on the line when the eating is good. I'm fully employed. My health is great. My child is wonderful. Okay. And we all sign on the line. And then all of a sudden down the road, okay, my health ain't so great. The budget's getting tight. Child may or may not be struggling in school and may or may not be one of the 40% or so that drops out. Or we take on a degree, the child gets the degree, and then they major something else totally different. And how many Dave Ramsey articles have we listened to, family, that says, oh, yes, and they it's usually a she. I'm not being sexist. I'm saying it the way it is, okay? She graduates with a college degree, and then she becomes a stay-at-home mom, and meanwhile, that $50,000, $80,000 degree is sitting there collecting dust and interest, making the banks very happy. Okay, when you sign on, and I've always generally believed that you are more powerful not signing on to debt for your children. And to me, Parent Plus loans puts the parent in a weak position because now the parent is beholden to the laws and the rules of the bank, the federal government. It is more powerful, in my opinion, to keep my budget in control of me. In other words, I am the one keeping the budget. I am not going to give that budget to an organization to take care of for me. If my sisters, just hypothetically, okay, let's say my sister, for whatever desperate reason, needed to borrow $5,000. I'm just saying desperate reason. They need $5,000 for whatever reason, okay? If I co-sign a loan for $5,000, I've just given up my ability to control my own money. I've given up the ability to control late fees. I've given up the ability to control overdrafts. Okay, all of that stuff. And this to me is what happens when a parent takes on a Parent Plus loan and the parent does not have the financial means to pay the loan off. I am not talking about parents that can easily pay it off. And you got some of those parents out there. Well, we have enough in stocks and bonds and we're just taking this Parent Plus loan because we want to teach our daughter responsibility. But the minute the daughter misses a payment, we're paying off that loan ka-ching. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about average Joe Blow America who's probably making between $30, $50, $60, $70,000 a year, somebody like me, okay, taking on a debt where they give up control of their finances. And I think the problem with the Parent Plus loan is a lot of parents don't consider that there is no cap on how much you can take out. And it used to not be that way. Parent Plus loans in their early years, like I want to say somewhere in the 80s or so, okay? In their early years, don't quote me on that date, but I want to say it's somewhere around there. Parent Plus loans were really for what? Parents that could afford to pay off the debt. But then as everything goes, when the government says, let everybody do it, they decide to open up to the whole world. And now the guy who's making $15 an hour at Chuck E. Cheese and really wants to get his son or daughter through school goes on, takes out a Parent Plus loan at, $30,000 a year and can't pay off the bill. Okay. The Parent Plus loan money is not dished out based on whether or not the parent can pay. It's based on how much the annual cost of the school is. And parents, I beg you, do the math before you take out that loan, because Parent Plus loans, like I said, they sit right up there with payday loans. They are sneaky and they have so many financial pitfalls and bad interest rates. So he doesn't think about, his financial situation 10, 15, 20 years down the road. You just think about it when the eating is good. COVID destroyed life as we knew it, he said. Corporate was to remove 20% of the workforce, so I was dumped. That's his way of saying he was laid off. But yeah, I understand feeling dumped. After searching for a new job, John said he was only able to find one that paid 39% less than his previous salary. He also shouldered the burden of 2 deaths of immediate family members and high medical insurance premiums. All of a sudden, I'm in a financial bind, John said, adding things only got worse when he got another surprise layoff. So that's 2 layoffs in a row for this poor guy. And he's carrying all this, and he's carrying $40,000 in Parent Plus loans. As of today, John has sent 80 applications out, done 3 interviews, and still has no job. Now, remember, this was just about a year ago, okay? So, I want you to imagine yourself taking out a Parent Plus loan you cannot afford, all right? And you get through 2 job layoffs, you have a medical illness, you send out 80 applications, and you have no job. You need to think about these things. Nobody wants to hire someone in their 60s anymore, he said. Since technical jobs aren't biting, I'm at the point where it's going to be $13 an hour at McDonald's or Wendy's. Here is a picture of John. There's his granddaughter. This is obviously on Newsweek magazine, so there it is for the public. I'm not giving you proprietary information. Okay, nobody wants to hire someone in their 60s anymore. Exactly. Which is why when people who are older take, and here's the thing, it doesn't matter when you really get down to it. It doesn't matter if it's Parent Plus loans or if it's just your student loan for yourself. It's just when it's a student loan for yourself, hopefully you can get PSLF, okay? But it still doesn't matter. Debt is debt. A student loan is a student loan if it has your name attached to it. You have to be thinking to yourself, how old am I going to be throughout the years as I carry these loans? Oh, gee, I'm going to be well into my 50s. Now I lose my job. I'm going to be competing against the 20, 30, and 40-year-olds. Yes, even 40. Okay, 40 is still pretty hardy for the corporate world. It's not until you seem to hit that really late 40s and the big 50, it all kind of seems to tank, all right? So he's working. He may have to work at Wendy's or McDonald's. And here's the sad part. He isn't kidding. So he'd be 62. By the way, put in the comments, do you guys notice that there are a lot of older people working fast food? Has anybody noticed this? Maybe we can put that in the comments. Because I will tell you this, when I was growing up, all right, and I'm a child of the 80s, I was born in 1967, so my awareness years were the 80s, okay? It was all teenagers. Now it is like mom, dad, grandma. It's almost like if I see young people working, I'm almost like, oh, wow. Like I do go to Culver's right down the street from me. And that tends to be fairly young people. Okay. But I do notice a lot of restaurants, though, it's the older generation working. So he's not being sarcastic or facetious when he says it's working at Wendy's or McDonald's, $13 an hour. Hope he doesn't have double knee arthritis like I have. Looking for a way out of his situation, John sent a letter to his loan servicer explaining the current hardship he's facing and hoping for some relief. Let's stop. Don't look ahead. Don't look ahead. What do you think the loan servicer said? What do you think the federal loan servicer said? Do you think they said, oh, John, you know what? We understand your daughter was in the top graduating class. We understand that you wanted the best for her. We understand that you've had deaths in the family. You have your own medical issues. You've had two job layoffs. Let us see how we can help you. Do you think that's what the loan servicer said? Oh, of course not. Quote, they did call me back and say, quote, too bad for you. That's not hardship. Now, they probably didn't say it quite like that, but you can bet that is what they meant to say. John said, adding they wanted him to make an extended payment plan that will have him paying until he's 85 years old. And let us not forget, family, it will also give the bank more money. Extend those payments out. John said he has serious regret. Oh my goodness, I need some juice. Everybody hold on. John said he has serious regret that he didn't finance the college loans with a regular bank, remembering that a bank vice president once told him not to in case the government could give him help down the road. I'm really not going to fault the bank vice president because in some ways, the bank vice president had his best interest in mind. The bank vice president, VP, was basically saying, look, if you take out a loan with us and there's any opportunity for you to get forgiveness, you're never going to get it. This was almost a no-win situation in some ways that John was facing. Do you go with the bank that's half the interest rate, but you're never going to get forgiveness? Or do you go with the federal government that's twice the interest, but will give you the forgiveness? I'll be honest, I would go with the bank because ultimately I think forgiveness is so difficult under Parent Plus that I would do everything I could to just pay the 4% interest off as fast as possible. So knowing what I know today, I would go with the bank. So I really can't fault John or even the bank VP for the decisions that they made. It was really a no-win situation for John. There's no way to predict the future. And I believe the bank VP really did have his best interest in mind. Despite the fact that President Joe Biden and the Department of Education have offered loan forgiveness plans for several groups facing hardship. Parent Plus borrowers have been left out of the relief, and they will continue to be left out of relief for the most part. Again, they do get it. It's just very difficult, and I don't know the ins and outs of it. All right. Let's see here. According to Student Loan Planner, those making $50,000 yearly with $100,000 in Parent Plus loans would have to pay $590 each month, whereas Safe Plan holders would only pay $143. Let us dissect this entire sentence and the fear that this sentence should give you. All right. First off, I make $63,000 as a teacher. Let's take away $13,000 of my annual income. And I only recently started making $63,000 like a year ago. Okay. It's not like I've been making $63,000 for the last 19 years. Because in 4 days, on Friday, I finished my 19th year. So let's take away $13,000, drop me to $50,000 gross, all right? And then give me a $600 a month student loan bill. I'm sunk. I am financially sunk. Let's see. And it says Safe Plan holders will only pay $143. And we know the Safe Plan, guys, kiss the Safe Plan goodbye. It's not it ain't happening. If the Safe Plan were going to happen, it would have happened by now. Okay. I think we can kiss that goodbye. So, but I want you to see the scary part here. Okay. Either way, let's say the Safe Plan did work. Do you really think $143 a month payment is going to pay off your $100,000 student loan bill? No. So that $100,000 student loan bill, you're going to be calling into the Dave Ramsey show. I'm going to probably be the one doing the commentary, although I would appreciate if Mr. Ramsey would hire me. I think I'd be terrific on it, but that's just my personal opinion. Okay. You know that bill is not going to ever be paid off. You cannot pay $143 a month on a $100,000 bill. And let's take a look at the $590 each month. Guess what? That ain't going to pay it off either. You're talking $100,000. So what happens either way? Either of these rescue plans, the bill's just going to go up. Take away $13,000 a year of my income and give me a $100,000 bill. And if you think about it, okay, I kind of lived under that until it was forgiven in 2022. I was holding on to $110,000. So I know what that's like. Let's see. We're going to skip that part. Okay, let's see. How are they going to extract the money from me? John said, I start Social Security next year. So he starts it this year in 2025 because this article is 1 year old. Are they going to forcibly take my Social Security payments for 20 years to satisfy the Parent Plus loans? Yes, they are, John. They're going to do it, and they're going to start it with wage garnishment because the only person that can get a blood out of the turnip is the federal government. And of course, that includes IRS, which is part of the federal government. So yes, they will garnish your Social Security. They will garnish your disability. They will keep any tax returns they have. Yes, they will get it. Oh, don't forget, at the end, I'm going to link for us the article I did on Friday about the 80 and 90-year-olds that are dealing with wage garnishment, that are dealing with loan delinquency and all of that stuff. I'm going to be attaching that at the end, along with the TikTok I did earlier today. Double upload Monday. Okay, moving on. According to the Social Security Administration, benefits can be garnished for federal loans in default. We know that, right? We already know that. Up to 15% can be withheld, even as retirees depend on the income for their daily living expenses. Remember, this is why I do not believe after the age of 50, you should be taking on any more debt. No financial commitments if it is not to your retirement account or to paying off your house, car, whatever. It is, in my opinion, the time for parents to be greedy. You've been given to the kids all your life. Time for you to be greedy. All right. Moving on. Oh, like other attempts at loan forgiveness, Biden cannot unilaterally forgive Parent Plus loans, which is true. And let's get something clear about PSLF. Okay, let's clear the air on here so we don't go running for the hills or running to TikTok and believing people who aren't saying the truth. Okay, yeah, and you can look up what I'm saying. All right. PSLF was formed in approximately 2007 under Obama. It was co-signed by both Republicans and Democrats, which is excellent. Public service loan forgiveness cannot just be wiped out by any administration. That includes the Biden, the Trump, and the next administration. The only way PSLF specifically can be wiped out, it would have to be an act of Congress. And here is the thing, and I would bet a check on it. No, not just a Pepsi at Thornton's. I would bet a check on it. It's not going to affect the people already in the PSLF program. It would affect future borrowers. So in other words, if you were to wake up one day and the headline is PSLF no longer exists, I guarantee it to you, it's not going to be towards the people that are already in it. Because also just mathematically, it'd be near impossible to figure out. And there would be lawsuits up the wazoo. But let's just do logic. Okay, it would be a congressional change that would affect future generations. So let's put the fear aside that PSLF, you're going to wake up one day and it's just gone. Yeah, they could take it away, but it's going to be an act of Congress and it's going to affect the people coming up in the future. So let's keep that in check here. Okay. All right. Looking back at the situation, John advises others to let their kids go to community college and to avoid a Parent Plus loan at all costs. Because remember, he sent his child to in-state four-year school and she lived on campus. Had she gone to a community college, been a quarter of that debt, and she could have stayed at home. Quote, I have had every intention of paying my Parent Plus loans, but then life happens, multiple losses happen, and I see no relief for Parent Plus loan holders, he said. John said if he does end up with his Social Security money taken away in retirement, and I'm going to interject that it will be taken, okay? He's unsure what the future will look like. Then I will have nothing. All I wanted to do was help get my brilliant daughter a degree so she will be better off than me, he added. But in closing, we have to remember, folks, we have to do the math first to find out if she's going to be better off than you. And better off than you doesn't mean you sink yourself so, she rises to the top as the cream, okay? It's not you sinking yourself to get her ahead. And here's the reality of it. If he's simply relying on his Social Security, and it sounds like that probably is, he could become a financial burden in the future to his daughter. Because now, if he's really short on income, where's he going to live? See, this is why I strongly believe that parents should say, no, I will not take on any future debt that I cannot afford to pay off. And Parent Plus loans, in my opinion, they're so emotionally driven. Okay, you emotionally want to help your child. And so you don't think about the math and you don't do the math in advance. And I am just as guilty. Let the record show. Okay, I am just as guilty. I got my master's degree emotionally based. I didn't have to get that master's degree to get the master's teacher pay. I already had one master's degree. I could have just paid off that $40,000 and called it done. But no, I had to do it the hard way. But that's good because that's what created this consumer debt channel. Good Friday evening, folks. We're going to look at a story by the New Yorker. This was published July 27th, 2022. It's called The Aging Student Debtors of America. And of course, it focuses on student loans and senior citizens. This article is rather lengthy. I am not going to read the whole thing. However, I will attach it in the description box so you can easily look it up and read the entire thing if you wish. I'm going to read parts of it, and I've set it up so you should be able to follow the mouse clicks. Looks like this. Okay, I can't see the mouse clicks, but you should be able to see it. And the mouse clicks will guide you as to where I'm at. And of course, this is going to have stops and pauses along the way. I can guarantee you that these stories that we're going to hear about, and again, I'm not going to read this word for word, but the stories that we are hearing about, I can pretty much guarantee you that these older people had every intention of paying off their student loan. And don't forget the dollar amounts that we're hearing about. Some of them, I believe, are six figures. Okay, because I have pretty much read over the article because I had to be able to do this. But even the ones that aren't six figures, even today, when we hear things like older people saying they have, $100,000 in debt, but 30 years ago it was 30,000, and we can sit there and it's easy for us to be critical and judge and go, you couldn't get out of $30,000, but you have to remember $30,000 30, 40 years ago would be like a young person today taking out debt, okay, student loan debt, say at 50,000, and we're looking at you and going, well, let's say you keep it for 30, 40 years, and 30, 40 years from now, somebody says to you, I don't get it. You couldn't pay off 50,000. You made more money than your parents did. What gives? So just like young people today are struggling to pay off their student loans, they say they don't have enough to raise their family, raise the kids, help out the spouse, start that new business, go back to school, whatever, okay? Just like we are struggling in today's economy to do it, we have people who 30, 40 years ago took out student loans, and they're struggling just as much. My first job when I was 26 was $16,000 a year. Okay. It's all relative. So we have to keep a little compassion before we just sit there and we say, I can't believe it. You took out $30,000 40 years ago. Why couldn't you pay it off? For the same reason, young people today can't pay a $60,000 bill, even though they may be making more than their parents make. All right. So here we go, folks. Again, I'm going to read parts of it. I've scrolled down, and hopefully this will be someone scared straight. I hope it helps. If it helps one person, it was worth all this time. Okay, so happy Friday. Here we go. In 1983, at the age of 52, Betty Ann enrolled in New York University's law school. As a middle-aged black woman, she wasn't exactly the typical NYU, I'm assuming that's New York University, law student. Her white male classmates would slyly elbow her books off the long library tables, and once while standing at her locker, a classmate waved a $10,000 tuition check signed by his father in her face. Betty Ann had borrowed $29,000 in federal loans. Today, hold your breath, she owes $329,000 in student debt. She is 91 years old. Now then, we ended right there. I want you to think about this. In 1983, I was a high school student. I graduated in 1985 from South Eugene High School. So figure I was 83, 84. Okay, so I was in 10th grade because we had 4-year high schools. Okay, so I was in 10th grade. And Betty Ann, Betty Ann, it wasn't much older than me. Okay. So at 52, she's 52 in 1983. Now, some people might say that is careless to take out student loans in your 50s. I'm going to be honest. After having mine for 16 years, I'm going to be of the camp that says when you are in your 50s, you should not be building debt. You should be trying to get rid of debt. Little too late to cry over the spilled milk. Okay. But I know a lot of parents try to take out Parent Plus loans to help their kids through college. And what age are they doing it? In their 50s. And what are they doing to themselves? They're sinking themselves. Even the ones that are trying to do it in their 40s are sinking themselves. So that's kind of scary. And now she's 91 and that debt has grown to $329,000 in today's dollars. Now, how much was it that she took out? Hold on here. I do this kind of casually, folks. Okay. Yeah. She had borrowed $29,000 in federal loans. So $29,000, she's had that a long time. And now it's $329,000. Oh, it's just added another $300,000 to it. All right. Continuing on with our reading. Americans age 62 and older are the fastest growing demographic of student borrowers. Of the 45 million Americans who hold student debt, 1 in 5 are over 50 years old. It goes into a bunch of other stats. I told you I'm going to be skipping parts of this, okay? Yes, I would have fallen into that 1 in 5 over 50 if my student loan had not been forgiven. Credit supposes that which we cannot afford today will be able to be paid back by tomorrow's wealthier self. Yes, how many students take out student loans thinking, well, I'm a broke pauper today, but tomorrow I will make enough money to pay off that $80,000 photography degree. I'll be wealthy enough that I will be able to pay off that $200 chiropractic physical therapist degree. I will be rich enough that I will be able to pay off the $150,000, $200,000 nursing degree. Or in my case, I will be wealthy enough that I will be able to pay off $85,000 degree for 2 master degrees. And I hadn't counted that I'd be divorced. See, life kind of gets in the way. So yeah, credit supposes that which we cannot afford today will be able to be paid back by tomorrow. I'm sure we could ask millions of student loan debtors right now in the United States. How's that working out for us? And I say us to include me in it. It didn't work out. My wealthier self was not able to do it. In fact, I got more broke. Okay, so clearly it did not work. But the premise is that, or the idea is that, hey, you take all this debt today, you'll be able to pay it off tomorrow. And how many young people, 18, 19, 20, are told that by their career, student loan, career financial aid office at their chosen school? Oh, don't worry about it. Just go ahead and sign. You'll be able to pay it off, 5 years, 10 years from now. Okay, let's see here. Continuing on, moving down. But the age of aging debtors calls into question the premise of education for human capital. Eroding union density, that means unions, job unions are kind of, the unions aren't as strong today as they were in the 60s, 70s, okay? Eroding union density, declining wages, and skyrocketing tuition have all made college less a path to high-paying jobs than an escape hatch from the worst-paying ones. That's what I tell my students. It's a fancy way of saying the idea is that we were supposed to go to college to get high-paying jobs to avoid being in the low-paying jobs. And what are we finding over and over with student loan borrowers? They're doing the low-paying jobs. One is because the economy sucks, pay sucks in relation to what it costs to live. So all these students who went to school thinking, hey, I'm going to make more money to keep from having to be a Starbucks barista. Nothing wrong with the Starbucks baristas. I get it. Okay, follow me here. Okay, don't take the career personally. Okay, but that's the reason people went to college. They don't want to be sitting there with a professorship degree serving lattes. At least I wouldn't expect you to want that. That's why you went to school. Okay, let's see here. Those who have taken on debt are increasingly unable to pay it off. Many haven't even received diplomas. The student debt crisis is particularly dire for Black borrowers. Racial wealth gaps mean that Black debtors borrow more to attend college and carry balances for a longer time, effectively paying more for the same degree than their white classmates. And then it goes on into more stats. I'm pretty good at skimming, so that's kind of what I'm doing here. Okay, let's go down, down, down. Older student debtors are not exceptional cases within the mounting student debt crisis. Their experiences are, in fact, indicative of its hallmark features. Mounting interest, looming balances, faulty relief methods, and declining wages all force borrowers to carry loans for longer and longer, pushing student debt across generations. Yes, grandma has student debt, mom has student debt, and so does child. Older debtors shuffle their income between credit card bills, house payments, car loans, student debts, often the furthest from their day-to-day lives, get paid off last, or don't get paid at all. Okay, let's look at this sentence right here, okay? Older debtors shuffle between credit card bills, house payment, car loans, student debts. It's not just older debtors, but younger debtors are doing it too, okay? Now then, remember what I've said on this channel, and I've said it multiple times, and I will continue to chant it, okay? As we age, we're young and we say, oh yes, we will pay off this degree. We will do anything we can to get this college degree. But we say it when we're 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. We're not married. We don't have kids. We haven't had a chance to perhaps live in different cities. We're still reliant on mom and dad. And then all we do is go from being reliant on mom and dad to go and being reliant on the federal government to pay our student loans and our housing. It is easy when we are young to say we are committed to the student loan payment because that's all we have. But what happens as we get older? Oh, yes, other things come into play. And that's what it's saying here. Older debtors shuffle between their income, their credit card bills, the house payment, the car loans. Right. And you've heard me say this on this channel many a times. Student loans get put on the back burner at some point. At some point, you're going to go, look, you know what? I have a special needs child. And what they need is more important than paying Sally Mae. And that's exactly what Sally Mae and even the federal government, may I note, they want you to put the student loan on the back burner because that's how they're getting you to paying, $29,000 for the initial loan. And then what did she have? $329,000 today. And something I read just to think about, I have not researched this, but I have heard, I do not have sources to verify this yet. I have to admit, I'm probably getting this from TikTok University, but I have heard that the government or a private lender can come after the deceased's estate. Now, I do not know if that is true. Maybe if you know if that's true, you can throw something in the comments about that. I might look it up this summer if it interests me enough. Right now it doesn't, okay? But I have heard by rumor on social media, this is what I call TikTok, YouTube University, meaning I got nothing to back it up, all right, that they can come after it. So you're Sally Mae and you gave this lady a $29,000 loan and she still has it from 1983. Think about it, guys. I was 16. No, 15. I was 15, 16 because I graduated just before I turned 18. So figure I was 16 years old when she took out that loan for $30,000. I was 16. I'm now 58. This article is 2022. Now do you see how it grew? It grows and grows. And she had the same intention I'm willing to bet most of you reading her article had, and that is, oh, we're going to pay it off. We're going to pay it. Yeah, but life occurs. And then things happen that become more important. And don't forget, the student loan is the only loan, to my knowledge, along with credit cards. Okay, along with credit cards. They love you to pay less than the minimum. They want you to pay less than the interest so they can just keep stacking on interest. So I don't know how true that is, that they could actually go ahead and garnish your estate, so to speak, but it wouldn't surprise me if they could. Just saying, okay? Let's see. So they shuffle their debt. For aging borrowers on declining incomes, the crisis is acute. Student debtors over 65 default at the highest rate. I'm going to tell you why I think student debtors over 65 default. They say default at the highest rate. My opinion, it's called game over. I couldn't pay this off in my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. I'm now in my 60s. I'm unable to work full time anymore. For whatever the situation. Guess what? It's game over. I don't care anymore. And I'm using the nice words. You can fill in the expletives as you wish. That's why I think the default rate is so high. See, when we're in our 20s and 30s, we also have a lot more to lose in our 20s and 30s. Okay, I don't care what TikTok says. Yes, going into default will affect your car insurance. It will affect your ability to own a house. It will affect or just property in general. It will affect your ability to be able to get certain licensing. Yes, you can't get licensed security clearance. I have a gal pal who works in security. And I'm gonna visit you sometime in your state also, okay? She knows who she is, okay? But she and I have discussed many times, all right? And she lives in tornado land. But we've talked about it. I know for a fact that with a lot of student loan debt, there are some jobs they look at you as too risky. You have to be able to pass a security clearance, not just in crime, but in how much money you owe and how well you keep your debt in check. And knowing that you're under garnishments, knowing that you have collections and all of this stuff can hurt you. So yeah, I can see exactly why. 65 and older, game over. Take what you want. And not only that, they don't have quite to lose anymore like the young people do. Think about that. Yeah, okay, garnish 15%. Years and years of erosion on labor rights has meant that wage power has not kept up with the student debt. As such, student loans don't take people out of the working class. They merely change the accounting of people living within it. 50-year-old David Ormsby, for example, had been working at a Home Depot in Detroit for 8 years when he decided to go back to school. Now, remember, he's 58. Again, I want you to think about, is there a pattern here with people going into debt at 50? In your 50s, you should be clearing it, not building it. That's just my personal opinion, unless you have the financial means to pay that education bill off in full without hurting other areas of your financial wealth. In other words, you're not dipping into your 401k to go get a $50,000 degree. Okay. So we have here David Ormsby. He's working at Home Depot for 8 years when he decided to go back to school. I wouldn't call it a dead end job. He's talking about Home Depot, he said, but he felt he wouldn't be able to advance without a higher degree. In 2005, he began studying part-time at a local university for a bachelor's degree in supply chain management, while also raising his 2 sons and working more than 50 hours a week. Today, he holds close to $90,000 in student debt. Oh. The degree helped him secure an auto manufacturing job with higher earnings and more satisfaction than his previous work. Still, the $500 monthly loan payments are hard to manage. Ormsby has begun working a second job delivering groceries to make his loan payments. Going back to school was a good thing, Ormsby said, but he's frustrated that he will be in his 70s before he will be able to start saving for retirement. Okay, there's the dude. This is all on public media. Okay, I'm sorry, but I try not to move the screen because it makes people's eyes go wiggy wiggy. Okay, and I don't blame you. All right, I'm going to poke holes in this, but I'm doing it in a way that I hope is lovingly critical. Okay, he's in his 50s. He finds that he's working at a job at Home Depot. Have you really advanced yourself when you go back to school in your 50s to take on student loan debt you cannot afford, to get yourself $90,000 into debt to have a $500 a month payment? I'm thinking, what would have just happened if he had just taken on a second job somewhere else and kept the money? See, this family, this is where I failed miserably when I went back to school to get 2 master's degrees because I wanted a master's degree in education. I didn't do the math. I didn't do it. And he talks about he has emotional satisfaction. He says here, more satisfaction. Hell, for $90,000 student debt, I'd rather be miserable than satisfied. If somebody said, Carrie, would you rather be just a little bit more miserable in your job and not take on $90,000 worth of debt? Or would you rather have the $90,000 worth of debt, the $500 a month that goes with it? And would that make you happier? Sometimes we have to put aside our personal satisfaction if we know our butt's just going to get chewed up in debt. And in some ways, I'm not saying he's more sad. I'm not saying he's not more satisfied, but I'm going to say this. If you had just spent all that money to go back to school in supply chain management in your 50s, you better say you're happy. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting there crying every night going, well, that was a dumb decision. And I'm not calling this a dumb decision, but I want you to think about it, okay? In your 50s, supply chain management, you're in your 50s in a corporation. What are the odds that it's going to be successful? I'm going to say unlikely. Because of the fact that 50s in corporate, yes, I know it's Home Depot. Home Depot is a corporation. We don't like to think of that, but yes, it is. Okay, it's a corporation. Corporations, your 20s and 30s and maybe your early 40s to mid 40s are the most ideal ages for advancement. And once you start getting into your 50s, guess what they start doing? They start looking to move you out, downsize you, whatever. Yes, there are people who manage to retire very successfully up the corporate ladder, yada, yada. Okay. But for the majority of people, no, that's not going to be the case. They're going to start moving you out. So here I see a lot of holes. And I just think to myself, what would have happened if he had just gone and worked at Lowe's? Remember, he's experienced at Home Depot. He could have gotten a part-time job at Lowe's. Okay, assuming they didn't have a non-compete clause. Otherwise, just go get a part-time job somewhere else. And he could have kept all that money. He's working all these hours to just give it to the student loan people. What type of advancement is that? It's not. Remember, you have to take away the cost of your education from the so-called profit that you got to really figure out what you earned. And I'm going to say he didn't earn it. I'm going to say he's actually in the hole. It's like people who drive for Uber and they go, and I make $2,000 a month on Uber. Meanwhile, they are beating the heck up out of their vehicle. And for some reason, that never seems to be a factor into the $2,000. I drive my car approximately 15 miles a day. If my car drives 20, we went a long ways away, like down to the airport, mall and back. Okay. What would happen to my vehicle if all of a sudden I said, you know what, I'm going to start driving for Uber all summer long and I'm just going to run up thousands of miles. I could run up in the summer, literally what it equates to over 9 months in a school year. If he really, really looked at the hard numbers, this was a horrible financial move, and he's not going to have it paid off until he's in his 70s before he can start saving. Okay, look it down here, folks. I'm clicking on it. I can't see the clicks, so I have to trust that when I film this, upload it, you can see it. I did a test run. It says you can see the clicks. Okay, he will be in his 70s before he can start saving for retirement. So that means you're going to retire broke, or you're going to work till you're 80. I guess that's the other option, right? Work till you're 80. Oh, I wonder how much that truck is that a truck? I can't tell if it's a truck. Looks like an SUV type truck. Okay, moving on. Although most older student debtors have borrowed money for their own education, approximately 1/3 have taken out loans on behalf of a child or grandchild. Unlike direct federal loans, which have borrowing limits, parents can take on virtually infinite amounts of debt, up to the full cost of attendance each year to finance their children's education through Parent Plus loans. Parent Plus loans often come with punishing terms as significantly higher interest rates. They have scant options for relief. And Parent Plus recipients are only eligible for one type of income-driven repayment program, blah, blah, blah. Okay, some parents are stuck paying for loans even if their child dies. Yes, they are. And you have to look at the terms of the Parent Plus loan before you sign. I'm not going to get really big into that. But yes, it does happen at times, probably more times than we like to admit. Student debts can plague borrowers until their last breath, jeopardizing even the government's meager protections for those of old age. Social Security defaulted student loans can trigger the Department of Education to command garnishment for tax refunds, wages, and Social Security. Disability too. This should be this should not be news to anybody at this point. Okay. In 2015, so 10 years ago, more than 200,000 student debtors over the age of 50 had their Social Security garnished. Did you hear that? That was 10 years ago. And people think that Social Security garnishment doesn't happen? Or they go, oh, it's not going to be a big deal when it does. That could be the difference between you being able to afford food or not. It could be the difference between you being able to have modest transportation affordability or not. Because remember, you're retired. There's no new money coming in. So every penny counts. Okay. Regarding Social Security garnishment, one of them was Olivia Faison. I'm just going to call her Olivia because I think I'm butchering her last name. A retired analytical chemist who is now 71. Olivia studied biology, chemistry, and music at Queens College in the early 1980s. Again, I'm a high school student. Oh, early 1980s? I was in middle school. I'm a middle school student, okay? So that for me, that'd be 7th and 8th grade, 9th grade. I was, quote, Olivia says, I was very fortunate to be able to get a college education on very little debt, receiving scholarships that paid for the majority of her degree and and borrowing approximately $9,000 for the rest. Okay, so she borrows $9,000 to go to school. Again, I'm a middle school student. Upon graduating, she worked in a private industry for several decades, but when her company downsized in the early 2000s, she was laid off. As an older Black woman seeking a job in the science, Olivia struggled to get her foot in the door at other companies. Many prospective employers required her to submit her undergraduate transcripts as part of the application, but because she still owed money from her undergraduate degree, that $9,000 from Queens College, refused to release her transcripts. Wow. My way of getting employment after 2001 was very inconsistent, Olivia said. She worked mostly temporary jobs for the next 13 years as her income dwindled and her loan payments became sporadic, meaning she didn't pay her student loan regularly. Now, I want you to think about this. We think it's just the poor people. We think it's just, the everyday middle class, family that's struggling. This woman had a scholarship. Let's put race aside, okay? She had a scholarship to Queens College. $9,000 was her debt. Now, again, we have to think in terms of what it was when I was a middle school student. What would $9,000 be today? Heck, it'd probably be like $50,000 today. I don't know. I'm not good at transferring numbers. But again, we're thinking in terms of that time period, okay? She wasn't able to pay that $9,000 off. So she winds up having her loan garnished. By the way, CUNY, that's the Queens College, whatever, ended the policy known as transcript ransom. So some schools, including the school that Olivia went to, no longer hold your transcripts for ransom, meaning even though you owe the school a debt, that they now will release your transcript so you can get a job. Because it does seem kind of stupid. It's kind of like jailing people that owe money. If we put you in jail, if we take away your driver's license, and if we don't give you your college transcript, how is any of that going to help you find a job? Especially the college transcript one, considering there was nothing criminal there. Scrolling down. Oh, there's her Queen's University. There she is. Okay. So Olivia, she took her retirement as soon as she could, scraping by in a combination of food stamps and Social Security payments. Doesn't sound to me like she should have retired at all. I am so thankful that for all my financial failures, that I was smart enough in my 30s to know that I needed a retirement plan. I knew I was going to need one. And I knew that if I wanted a 30-year teacher pension like my parents had, I knew I would need to be a teacher by the age of 38. So I could retire at 67, 68. That would give me 30 years. I got a job 3 weeks approximately before I turned 38. My parents taught me well. That was one area I can honestly say was a home run. Planning my retirement as far as pension. And it's very valuable, and I'm aware of that. And it's the one smart thing that I did, and I followed what my parents did. And fortunately for me, teaching happens to be my dream job, so that really, that's like a home run, you know. The job that has a pension is also my dream job. Supports the family business of being educators. Okay, so it says here she took her retirement as soon as she could. I don't think she should have taken it. I hate to say it. I think she should have kept on working. It is what it is if you don't save, okay? Olivia knew her debt had reduced her Social Security benefits. Her last decade of her earnings were her lowest. But she was shocked to learn that the outstanding student debt had enabled the Treasury Department to garnish around 10% of her roughly $1,000 security. Excuse me. Let me repeat that again. She was shocked that the Treasury Department garnished approximately 10% of her $1,000 Social Security payment since 2014. It was just plunder, she told me. So her freaking Social Security is only $1,000 a month. And they're garnishing about 100 of it would be 10%. So that'd give her about $900. Wow. Olivia set to work contesting the offsets, meaning she was not happy about having to pay the garnishment, basically. She dug through complex government websites, made phone calls, sent letters, yada, yada. Okay. With the help of legal aid, she learned that the collection agency, Coast Professional, did not consider her eligible for hardship exemptions because a judgment had been rendered against her in the late 1980s. In other words, this woman had a judgment. She didn't even know about it. I wonder how many current student loan people right now, okay, I'm talking millennials, what's after millennials? Gen Zs, okay? How many of them have judgments and don't even know it? It is possible that you can have a student loan judgment against you and genuinely not know it. Okay. So we can't shame her for that because I genuinely believe it could happen to someone today. Let's see. So she has a judgment against her. This was news to Olivia, who had not been informed of a proceeding held against her. Oh my goodness. And then no more information could be found. She wrote a letter to President Obama and basically nothing was said. So she owes it. Here's the thing. These judgments and stuff and the wage garnishments, I think young people don't take them as seriously as they should. I mean, literally, you've got people on TikTok, and don't worry, we've got more student loan debt stories. Okay, don't worry, the student loan debt TikToks are coming this weekend. All right, we have people who are literally going, "Oh, it's okay, just let them garnish, just let them, take the money. I'm not paying it." But as we know from some of our writers on this channel who have informed me, because I didn't know it, okay, and I think it was Jamie who said it, and that is judgments a wage garnishment, your employer can charge you for it. Okay, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I think a lot of these TikTokers going, "Hey, I don't care, just let them garnish because I'm not paying it." Well, you're gonna pay it, and it's now going to involve your employer. It could potentially involve your employer charging you for it because it's extra work on their part. Okay, we just don't understand. I think a lot of young people just don't understand the seriousness of it. It's kind of like, follow me to jail. Okay, so here we have another story of Ian Fitzpatrick. Patrick. So we've moved off Olivia and we're on to Ian. I have to say that because I'm sure some people are listening to this as a podcast. All right. So Ian Fitzpatrick is a 57-year-old lawyer with roughly $84,000 of student loans, jokingly calls his student mortgage. So Ian Patrick, 57, I'm 58. This article was 2 years ago. So we're pretty close to the time period. Just back it up a few years. Okay. Had the same amount of student loan that I had until mine was forgiven in 2022. And he's a lawyer, and Ian couldn't get rid of his debt either. So you wonder, a lawyer can't get rid of their student loan debt. Obviously, Ian could not get rid of it because Ian's in this article. So how do you think a single school teacher is going to get rid of $85,000? Ian and I basically had the same amount of student loan debt. Okay. And our assumption is that lawyers are what? Rich, wealthy, or at least they're very well off. Not all lawyers. Okay. You should have seen some of the offices my bankruptcy lawyers worked in. I don't think they were very wealthy, judging by the office. Okay. But I digress. All right. So Ian is a 57-year-old lawyer with roughly $85,000 of student loans. But at least with a mortgage, one can walk into a bank and request records of the initial amount borrowed, number of payments made, the remaining balance. The Department of Education, effectively one of the country's largest banks, thanks to its $1 trillion student loan portfolio, is unable to provide such accounting for its 45 million clients. So in other words, the student loan, and I know a lot of you already know this, call your student loan company and say, tell me, how did you get to that balance? And they can't tell you. That's what that whole paragraph is basically saying. They can't tell you. I think we would be shocked if we actually got to walk into the Department of Education, and other than the fancy outside of the building, we might be surprised to go back to the 80s and look at, oh, this is how you are holding onto our records. When I first worked in a library, and I was at the Salem Statesman Journal in Salem, Oregon, that was my first real job, okay, so to speak, and I was a librarian. The way we kept it, now remember, the internet had not been invented, and it was only coming around about a year or two before I left. They said this thing, they were like, this thing on a computer, you'll be able to look it up and you can see different places and read other newspapers. It's really when the internet was just being used for reading, and it wasn't all the buying and selling and trading that we see today, okay? Keep in mind, I'm 27, so you're talking 30 years ago. To keep track of the newspaper. You think we'd have some fancy system? No, I hand cut the articles out. Okay, literally. Okay, this is my newspaper. Okay, I would cut out the article, stick it in an envelope, and when I cut out the article, I had to make sure that the reporter's name and the date was attached, and then I would type with a typewriter onto the envelope. Okay, these were the stories. Let's see, what is it today? It's I would write. I would write something like May 23rd, 1989, whatever. Okay. That's how the stories were kept. There was no computer system. And God help you if somebody came in, took out an envelope of a particular day and did not bring the envelope back. God help you, because we had no way to find it. It's kind of like when someone goes to the library and they take a book and they take it off the shelf. And I'm always like, please, put the book back where you got it. Or if you really don't know, just leave it on the table and I'll put it back. Because once you pull it and you put it in the wrong spot because you're too lazy to go ask for help or whatever, okay, that's how we kept it. So when we talk about the Department of Education and they can't give you accountability for the records, are we really surprised? I don't think so. All right, let's see. Let's go down, down, down. We're going to scroll. Actually, I don't want to read this whole thing. Let's see. The debtors that I spoke with, this is now the author, okay? The debtors that I spoke with, many of whom I met through my work with the Debt Collective, find the system both impenetrable and humiliating. Yeah, I bet. Okay, they're talking about the student loan system. You know, you can't figure it out. And the way that people feel at times is they feel insulted, meaning the borrowers feel insulted. Several grimaced when I asked if they would be willing to share their names, unaccustomed to speaking publicly about debts they've carried silently for years. You know, I wonder how many people right now have grandparents that have student loans that they don't know about. I had no idea great grandma or grandma had student loans. But I'm hoping that with channels like this and other channels and student loan news being out in the open and everybody talking about their debt, whether it be credit card, student loan, whatever, okay, that it's not so shameful anymore and it's not something that has to be hidden. But I can understand perhaps from their generation and stuff, they may be thinking, you know, this is embarrassing. But I'm hoping like channels like this make it much more out in the open. In fact, I have a few people that I talk to from this channel, and they kind of let me know where they're at in their goals. And I appreciate that trust. Okay. And of course, it never gets outed on this channel. All right. But confidentially, they let me know. No, here's where I'm at. This is my goal. All right. But can you imagine if you were a grandparent at this age, and you've never told your family that you owe all these thousands of dollars in student loans? And I think the fear is that they would think that somehow or another you were less than, or somehow or another you had failed. And I think we need to stop looking at student debt like a failure. And instead, we need to look at why is it that it's failing? And really, to me, it's that income-based thing. Okay, it's that income-based, it's lack of education about what the degree is really going to pay. It's false information that they're being given in the financial aid office that this degree is going to pay for itself. There's so much stuff to factor in. And that's why we need to bring it out into the open. Okay. So anyways, let me go on, scroll down. More people that owe debt. You can see the age they are. These are your great grandparents. Okay. And maybe even sometimes great grandparents. Let me see if there's anything else on here. Okay, I think that's pretty much of everything I want to read on that. This has gone on long enough because you know me, on this channel, the motto should be, for we make a long story longer. Thanks for joining me, guys. I'll see you tomorrow with TikToks on, of course, student loans. Bye.
My name is Simon Galperin. I'm 29 years old, and my problem is that I have $235,000 worth of student debt from my public education that I see no way of ever paying off. This was the last year that I've made $65,000 in a year. The year before that, I made $27,000. I pay $35 a month.
How does that make you feel, $35 a month?
My goal is to pay $35 a month until I die. If I began to think about what does it look like to pay down $235,000 in debt, I need to make decisions about my life right now. So to me, that means building a life for myself that doesn't focus on paying down my debt. I believe that if I chase an income, I'm not gonna live a life that I think is worth living for me. I am really oriented around mission and making sure that my work has a positive impact. I'm not interested in seeking more income for the sake of seeking more income. And I am taking back my power, and I will not participate in that system. My goal is not paying off debt to some company whose CEO can buy himself a private golf course. My goal is to change the world, leave it better than I found it. Chasing income is not the way to do that. What is the benefit of me paying an extra $500 a month? I want to make my life today, not worry about what my life is going to look like 40 years from now.
All right, we're going to go ahead and stop it right there. There is a surprise ending to Simon's story, but that will come after my commentary. So welcome. There is no quiet room this evening, people, because it is a news story from Money Magazine, which of course you can see inside the description box. I will provide the link to the full interview, as I did cut down to the interview the parts that I thought were most important. All right, really quickly, if you were not online with us yesterday, I uploaded a very fascinating story. I thought it's from Newsweek magazine. It's about a father who has student loan debt until he is 85 years old. So that is going to be linked at the bottom. He's unemployed. He has bad health. And basically, he's in a real predicament because he's in his 60s. And he's looking at 25 years of student loan debt that he cannot afford. So that will be linked at the end. All right, people. So I'm so glad you are here. All right. So Simon, the person that is being interviewed on this Money Magazine report, I took a bit of time and did something that is unusual, and I broke down almost word for word every sentence that he said, just about every sentence. All right. And I typed it out so it would be easy for you guys to follow. Okay. Because I want to make it comfortable for you. So we are going to go through piece by piece, or I am. And as I'm going through this, okay, I want you to be thinking to yourself, okay, is Simon a victim of his own ego? Is he a victim of the student loan system, or is he a victim of something else? And maybe he's not even a victim at all. Okay. So that's up for you to decide. Please feel free to banter about it amongst yourselves in the comment section. Starts out by saying his goal is to pay $35 a month until he dies. Meanwhile, his parents, who are immigrants, remember I cut down part of it, okay? His parents, who are immigrants, are paying $600 a month towards his loan. Now, I am unclear, and they didn't make it really clear, if the $600 that the parents are paying is part of the 235 thousand that he has. I'm going to assume it is, because with the 235 choke $1,000 bill, if it is running on income based, it makes sense that the bill would be right around $650 a month. So I'm going with the assumption that we're not talking about a Parent Plus loan, because this is how Simon is able to pay $35 a month. Now, I have to be honest, when I first saw this, I just kind of wanted to, strangle the TV, not strangle him, because I'm not a violent person. Okay. But it's one of those, I'm kind of like, how dare you think like this? But it dawned on me, even though this video is 5 years ago, and if you follow this channel, anything that I bring up from the past is because I believe it has some relevance to our current situation. But it dawned on me that perhaps there are more Simons out there than we know. And perhaps there are more Simons out there through, whether they're victim of their own circumstance, whether they're victim of, other people giving them bad advice, whatever. I suspect that in 2025, with the economy the way it is, housing, vehicles, and everything else just pretty much tanking over the last few years, not to mention COVID, because think about it, this was 5 years ago. So COVID was nice and active, right? I suspect there are more Simons out there than possibly ever before. It's almost that attitude of, I've tired of trying to do it for everybody else. I'm now in it for me. Even though we can argue he's clearly a millennial, even though we can argue that they haven't put in enough time, energy, work, effort, and years yet to be able to claim that, sometimes it's not always about that. So just be thinking about that. Put in the comments, all right? If you think he's a victim, or is it just, maybe it's just his own ego. So he wants to pay $35 a month until the day he dies. So this makes me wonder, well, what the bejesus then are his parents supposed to do? What are his parents struggling to do? And then I had a thought. All right. I thought to myself, is it possible that his parents, through perhaps some negligent parenting, perhaps some over, what is it? They over, is it overcompensated? When parents do too much for a child, I can't think of the exact word. Okay. But they gave him too much of everything that he wanted, because why on earth the parents are paying $600? I'm telling you, 600, that is the 235K. Because it would make sense if you were income based, your bill would be right around that 600. So son is paying $35, parents are paying 600, and it's easy. I thought at first to go, oh man, the poor parents. And I went, wait a minute. They're his parents. They're the ones who have set the bar. They're the ones who have set the standard, okay, on which the household shall run, on how money shall be seen, on how people shall be treated. And if his parents have enabled, that's the word I'm thinking of, they've enabled his attitude, his thought process, then should we really feel sorry for his parents? He can't, if the bills are in his name, and they don't ever really clarify that. I mean, for all I know, maybe these are Parent Plus loans, but it doesn't sound like it, because they interviewed him and he seems to make pretty clear it's his debt. And he does have a girlfriend also, but she's not a really big part, except just to say that, he doesn't feel like they can get married, and they've been dating 11 years. Okay. So can we really feel sorry for his parents? That's always something to throw in the comments. Do you feel bad for his parents? Somehow or another, they raised a son who believes that it is okay for the parents to pay 600, and the capable, young, hardy, able to work son pays $35. And his goal is to pay $35 until he dies. So in an indirect sense, he's saying that his parents are going to continue paying 600 until they die. And that plan may not work out, because, again, I'm assuming this is all the same 235K bill. Okay. Matter of fact, I pretty much bet a paycheck on it. If the parents stop paying the 600K a month, then who's going to pay it? So I think that parents perhaps have enabled it somewhat. Now I've changed the color of the print because it makes it easier for me to see when the slide has changed. Okay, he says he can't think about what it looks like to pay $235K. This was 5 years ago. How many people today in 2025 are saying that? We can't think about the bill that we own, the student loan bill that we have, because it hurts too much. We can't look at it. We can't bear to call the student loan provider. I have some people, and we know this is true. Some people you have not pulled up your student loan account on the computer. I know there are people that have not done it. And there are going to be people who are getting wage garnishments. They're going to go, oh my God, I had no idea it was coming. You know it's coming. I have to be honest, I don't think the wage garnishment's that hard to avoid. Although there may be times it's just totally unavoidable. You just can't you don't have a way to pay the bill. So they're just going to have to take it out. But short of that, I think a lot of people can avoid it. The so-called 5 million people are going to get wage garnished. Does that tell you the state of our student loan system, right? So he says he can't think about what it looks like. Aren't you impressed? I even use quote marks. Yeah, that's the English teacher in me. We must quote the things that we did not come up with. So how many people relate to that today? And by the way, he really doesn't have to think about the 235 because who's paying the bill? His parents. What a shame. He's paying 6, 12, see, 7, 8, 6, 4. He's paying about $9 a week towards his student loan, and his parents are paying $600 a month. This guy is paying $9 a week. Okay, and again, this is in order of the video. He says, quote, he's building a life that doesn't focus on paying down debt. You know, there is such a thing as someone who has donuts for brains. Okay. Let me read that again. He's, quote, building a life that doesn't focus on paying down debt. So my thought is, oh, great. So then what you're doing is you're building a life that focuses on running up debt. That's the only other, if you're not paying down debt or sitting still, I guess, out of debt, you're running up debt. So if we look at his words and we break them down, what he's saying is look, you know what? My life is just too important for me to have to be concerned with adult responsibilities like the debt that I ran up. Now, in all fairness, all right, because I like to come clean. I did get my 110,000 student loan, as you know, all right, and I do have to repeat it many a times, okay, because we have new people on this channel, and you are so glad you're here. All right. But my 110,000 got forgiven in 2022. Now people could say, well, clearly, Carrie, you ran up debt and you didn't care. Contraire, I disagree. I did what the law told me to do. I worked 10 years, actually 16, in a public service job, teaching middle school English, where I remain today, finishing my 19th year on Friday. I followed the law that said we will forgive your student loan because we know that your pay really sucks. We know that the education you are required to get to be able to get a master's degree, you're never going to make enough to pay it off. Not as a single school teacher. Sure, give me a husband, give me, give me some assistance and maybe I can do it. Most likely I can. Okay. But on my own, carrying the whole thing and have a place to live and save for retirement. No, you can't. So I have to politely disagree with people when they say, well, you got yours paid off and you didn't have to do anything. Are you kidding me? 16 years. And like I said, I'm finishing my 19th year. Okay. And I followed the opportunities and the law that were given to me. Simon here saying he's building a life that doesn't focus on paying down debt seems kind of backwards, because if he's going to build a life that doesn't focus on, I'm going to gnat in here, it's with the lights. If he's going to build a life that doesn't focus on paying down debt, then doesn't it make sense that he should not want to get into debt at all? If I say to you, I'm going to focus on a life that does not have me weighed down and trying to pay down debt, which is where I stand today. That is my goal. I'm now focusing on a life that does not have debt, that I need to make sure that I do not run up debt. Right? It's the logic in it. Okay. So that's what he says he's focusing. He's not focusing on paying down debt. But at the same time, he's not focusing on being debt free because he clearly runs up debt. He says, chasing income won't give him, quote, a life worth living. Let me repeat that. He says chasing income won't give him a life worth living. Huh. So he's got a girlfriend. He says that they might eventually want to get married. I'm going to assume they'd probably want to have a kid. It's just assumption I'm making. Okay. So, how are you going to support them? Now, it appears that she works. Again, she was only a snippet in the whole interview. And if she ever sees this, I'm going to tell her, woman to woman, pick someone else. There are much better men out there, even with student loan debt, that will give the debt more respect and the urgency to get rid of it than this guy. This guy, Simon, has no sense of urgency. So he says here, chasing income won't give him a life worth living. So I guess my question then is who's supposed to support his sorry butt? Apparently his parents are helping support him. And honestly, you guys, the more I think about it, I feel less and less sorry for his parents. They've chosen to do it. Okay. It is the choice that they have made for their little boy who probably got everything he ever wanted. Because that's kind of the attitude that he comes across as though he's gotten everything he's ever wanted. That comes from the top, mom and dad. All right. So if making money, chasing income doesn't give him a life worth living, then I guess being in debt and broke does. Oh, let's take a look here. He says, quote, he won't seek income for sake of seeking income. Because remember, this is about him paying off his $235,000 debt that he refuses to do. And he's saying, look, you know what? You want me to go off and pay this debt. You want me to go and earn more money. Why? Well, I'm thinking because you got some debt you need to pay off. And he says here, he won't seek income for sake of seeking income. No one's asking him to seek income for the sake of seeking income. They're asking him, hey, are you going to seek income so you can pay off the $235K debt you owe? Now, again, I understand that my viewpoint may seem a little harsh considering I got my debt forgiven. But again, let me remind the court, I fulfilled the duties for not 10 years, but 16 years to get my loan forgiven. A job that most people would absolutely never do. Even if they could get their student loan forgiven, they would not do it. I do not get the impression that Simon in this interview has done anything to deserve forgiveness, income-based payment, whatever. He's done nothing to show me that he deserves to have his loan forgiven. If Simon could do something that showed me that he had worked and toiled and he had sacrificed, he had done all these things, and that his loan should be forgiven, then I could rightfully say, you know what? He did all the requirements. Simon ain't done squat except spend his parents' money, be self-entitled, in my opinion. Okay. And don't forget, folks, again, the question is, share your thoughts in the comments. Is Simon a victim of his own ego? Is he a victim of the student loan system? Or do you think it's something else? And it's totally okay. Throw in what you think. All right. So that's the seeking income for seeking income. Isn't he just going to make a great father? If he decided, I hope this girl didn't marry him, but if she did marry him, okay, he's going to be the type of dad that's going to say, you know what, you're supposed to do all the work. And in fact, he won't even be the one going to work. And guys, I'm not kidding. There is a surprise ending to this. Okay. And those of you who know what it is, don't say nothing. Don't say nothing. Okay. Because there's a surprise follow-up to Simon. All right. Oh, let's see what's next. I think there are like 7 of these slides. Okay, he says, I'm taking back my power. I won't participate in that system. Does he have Fruit Loops for brains? Does he not realize when you say I'm taking back my power, I won't participate in that system? First off, there was no power to take from you that he did not voluntarily give away. And second is, I won't participate in that system. Simon, buddy, you're already in the system. You volunteered to be in the system when you took on the student loan debt. You see, here's the thing. Simon would lose debate 101 easily. I can think smarter than he is with my bunny ears on. Don't let the bunny ears fool you. There is a brain behind here, I promise, okay? So he says, I'm taking back my power. What? Taking back what power? We the people. We will not pay. Yeah, and like I've said, like little thieves in the night, they're all running to call Sally Mae or Nelnet or whoever their student loan provider is because they don't want a garnishment coming up this summer. And let me tell you something, this summer is going to be very active on this channel because, as you know, I don't teach during the summer, so do not be surprised. There will probably be a lot of double upload days. So be looking for a lot of those because there will be. Okay. Might as well entertain the masses. So when he says I'm taking back my power, I won't participate. Too little, too late, buddy. You already are participating in it. Okay. I mean, you're already in the system. You took out a student loan. See, he's the type of guy that goes in, does what he wants, and then backs out and tries to wash all responsibility. He cannot do that. He says, quote, my goal is not to pay debt that helps the CEO. Okay, it's like one of the last slides. My goal is not to pay debt that helps the CEO. How many times have I said on this channel, right here at this computer deck, I have said, do not base your financial plan on your political opinions about what's going on. Well, I'm not going to pay my student loan because Trump has never had to pay student loans. He doesn't know what it means. Why would you screw up your own family? Well, I'm not going to pay my student loan because Biden screwed us all over. And now, he said we'd get the 1020 and we didn't get. So now I'm paying nobody. And now I'm just going to default and go into a wage garnishment. Do not make your household budget revolve around the politics of the companies that you are forced to be involved with when you take steps that requires your involvement with that company. Okay. So I hope that made sense. All right. So when he says my goal is not to pay debt that helps the CEO, nobody's asking what he thinks of the CEO. What they're asking is, what are you going to do about the debt that you chose to take out? I will tell you this. So holding my student loan for 16 years, I held it from, guys, here's the thing. And I had a realization earlier today. Okay. As I was pondering in the car, I was actually thinking of live streaming, but I went, I would wait till this evening. Although I know this is not a live stream, but I thought about it. Do you know my student loan, my $110,000, is it albatross or whatever it is, that big problem that you carry around? Do you know that's only been gone for 3 years? It was forgiven in 2022, fall of 2022. So 23, 24, 25. This fall, it will only be 3 years. Yet, for some weird reason, it seems so long ago, but at the same time, it seems just like yesterday. And I think anyone who's had student loans that, they've had a hard time paying off, or even if you had an easy time paying them off, it does. Once they're done and paid, it seems so far away, but yet at the same time, it seems just like yesterday. Yesterday. All my troubles seem so far away. Okay, moving on. So anyways, you got to go with the flow on this channel, folks. I love you. Okay, and then the final is, because it says here, get ready. The final quote is, my goal is to leave the world in a better place. Yeah, I'm laughing over that one too. That is his goal. His goal is to stick his parents with a $600 month loan, so he only has to pay $9 a week. The goal is not to work to create an income. God help you if you have a child. Okay. His goal is not to, figure out how to pay down his debt or anything else. His goal is to be Zen and live as one within his own mind and body. That is his goal. And that's how he's going to leave the world in a better place. Screw you, you, and you. That's kind of the impression that I get. All right, here. So we are now going to watch the ending of this. All right. We're going to watch the ending, and it's just a surprise. It's a surprise. Okay. So let me go ahead and play it.
Simon, it's good to see you. Heard you had a conversation with our friend Ramit. Has anything changed in your financial life since then?
Sure. So since my conversation with Ramit, I've gone to half-time at the company I was previously working for.
Okay. So things that were previously difficult, maybe more difficult right now?
Certainly. It's possible that I will die with debt, that I won't be able to retire because of my debt. I know that all of these things are going to happen, so I'm playing my cards.
Simon is a total donut. Just a complete donut for brains.
A historic drop in U.S. college enrollment.
U.S. college freshman enrollment is on the decline.
Many schools have seen those enrollment declines already.
Since the last half of the 20th century, a college degree has been touted as a must-have for a stable and successful career.
I did grow up around a lot of people telling me college was the route that you should go.
My parents were always hounding me about going to college. All the teachers reminded you about making sure you get good grades so you can pass elementary school, middle school, and go to college.
But earning that degree has become less and less attainable. Over the past decade, the average annual cost for a 4-year private college has risen by about 42%. For public universities, it's gone up by about 30%.
Take a look at that, folks. Is that just not absolutely ridiculous? For those who are driving, okay, we are, because I know not everybody looks at the screen. We're listening to CNBC. It's their Make It series. It's their Make It series, which I absolutely love. And this was just run about 2 weeks ago. So it's very current. And of course, for those who want to skip the commentary, you can always fast forward to the quiet room. But keep in mind, the quiet room video is going to be my edited version. Okay, so if you want to watch the whole video without any editing done to it, then you need to go to my description box and you can see the full video there. I always like to say that because I know not everybody's looking at a screen at the time that they're listening to this. Okay, but this is just obscene. Okay, so we have here 42%. The cost of private attendance has gone up, and 30%. The cost of public school attendance has gone up. You know, I have to be honest. I secretly hope, and I'll talk about it more as we go through this series here. And we're going to be watching probably a number of CNBC series because I absolutely love the Make It series. But in some ways, I really hope that Gen Z, that's currently, in the workforce right now, in some ways, I hope they are able to do what Gen X could not do, and that's my generation. And that is to be able to carve out a path for themselves that's not done because it's been dictated to you, because it's been told to you that you had to do it that way. And that may be something that, the Gen Z generation comes to a head with. Because in many ways, the Gen Xers like me, and we're in our 50s, and a lot of the millennials, especially the older millennials that are closer to my age, we did that routine of, you go to college, 4 years, and you're supposed to get a job, you're supposed to stay with the company for forever, yada, yada. So I think in many ways, I'm secretly hoping that Gen Z can make a path more for themselves that works and not so cookie cutter like I believe the children of the 80s had. Don't get me wrong, we had lots of bennies. We had a lot of benefits too, being a kid of the 80s. But at the same time, if I could change something, it would be less routine, more individual thinking, more individual goals and desires to achieve those. So I'm hoping Gen Z can do that, perhaps on our behalf.
And jobs that traditionally require college degrees are no longer as reliable as they once were.
The market has really rewarded companies that announce layoffs.
So it may not be surprising that many in Gen Z, the youngest generation in the workforce, are saying no to the college experience. Instead, they're entering blue-collar jobs and skilled trades that don't require a 4-year degree.
Now, I know when I was growing up, to say no to the college experience, well, you didn't have to go to college, and lots of people knew that you didn't, okay? But in certain households, saying no to college is like, that's a death sentence right there. You don't say something like that. But what's odd is, at least from what I remember in the 80s, you didn't have to all go to college. Some people went, some people didn't. It wasn't such a big deal. And it's my belief that going to college, as we know it, became a big deal as colleges started taking on more, as college became more financially rewarding. But to who did it become more financially rewarding? Not the student, but the colleges themselves. So as colleges saw, we get to have more and more money, our government loans are backed up. Okay, our tuition is backed up by the federal government. The sky's the limit. Now all of a sudden it became the big chant of everybody go to college, everybody go to college. And the people in this story, I did have to cut down their stories because I didn't want to play the whole thing. Okay, again, you go in the description box and watch the entire thing with their interviews. I really admired the two people that they focused on in this story. And I think to myself, how many people perhaps are sitting in a high school classroom? I teach middle school, but this really applies more to high school, older high school students. in my opinion. But how many older high school students really, they're a square, what is it? You're a square peg trying to fit into a round box and you can't. And perhaps we need to change the way we perhaps we need to change some of the requirements as to what it takes to graduate from high school. Maybe everybody doesn't need 2 years of foreign language and 4 years of math. And I teach language arts. Okay, that's the reading and writing. So I have to put myself in there too. Maybe everybody doesn't need to read about Shakespeare. In other words, wouldn't it be totally cool in a perfect world if high school graduation could be tailored to the individual needs and plans and goals of that student, and that became the required graduation model? Did you obtain, your internship? Did you meet up with, 3 different people who work in that industry? Did you work for them for a semester each? You know what I mean? That sort of thing. Wouldn't that be neat?
Gaining skills that allow them to then go out and start their own business. And that really allows them the opportunity to set their earning potential as they go forward.
And as
and that could be something else. Yes, I know I stopped the videos. That's why there's a quiet room. Okay. But welcome to the social room. I'm glad you're here on this Monday night. That's the other thing. Wouldn't it be neat? Oh, I swear. Wouldn't it be neat if part of a high school requirement, like we could put students on different paths. Let's say you have a path of somebody who really, really wants to be an entrepreneur. Okay. Wouldn't it be neat if one of those paths could be, okay, what have you done to start your own business? So by the time they are graduating, their graduation requirement is to have their own business, and they've got, do you have 20, 50 customers for it? I mean, whatever. I can't totally devise a curriculum for them, on the spot. But in other words, make high school individual, make the graduation requirements more diversified. So the kid who really wants to have their own business is already on track with a business that has started. In other words, you have your LLC, you have your business insurance, you've worked to get a certain base of customers. You see what I mean? We're not saying it makes it easier. For some reason, I think sometimes people think that, if we don't all get tested the exact same way, then somebody's cheating. No. As a matter of fact, we're cheating you out of it if we test you exactly the same way. Okay, we're cheating you because we're saying you're all on the same level. So one thing I love about language arts, to be honest, is a lot of the testing that we do now, it tailors to the student's level. Wouldn't it be neat if we could do that with high school graduation? Tailor the high school graduation to the student's individual ability, interests, learning level. I think that would be so cool. That'd be like in a perfect world. I hope I'm making sense.
Older blue-collar workers begin to retire, it may be that Gen Z rises to fill the skilled labor gap.
You better start welding.
Yeah.
As a teenager, Morgan Bradbury was weighing going to college for either engineering or physical therapy. But it was while she was working on becoming an Eagle Scout that she discovered what would become her new career.
They had a welding merit badge there, and I was like, oh, fire, that sounds pretty fun. I just immediately was like mesmerized by the fact that I could have the ability to build things with my own hands and kind of put together the engineering side of my brain and the hands-on side of my brain. I thought it was just instantly something really cool to do.
Instead of going to a 4-year college after high school, as she was planning to do, Morgan took a 9-month welding certification course at Universal Technical Institute, a for-profit trade school. The $22,000 price tag for tuition wasn't cheap, but it was also a fraction of what she would have paid for 4 years of university schooling. Morgan landed a job as a third-class welder with BAE Systems before she had even finished her certification. At 19 years old, she was earning about $57,000 a year. Now, 2 years later, she's a second-class welder, working on U.S. Navy ships in Norfolk, Virginia.
I have certifications in almost every type of welding that we do here.
Morgan isn't alone among her peers in.
Okay, I want to stop here just a second. 19 years old, she's working on Navy ships as a welder. I don't understand the classes of welding. How many 19-year-olds right now are floating around in a swimming pool, in a floaty, or climbing a rock wall, spinning at a really high-tech gym in some college degree that they will never use? Or that they really, really want, but they'll never be able to earn the income that they thought they could earn in it. Or the degree that they really, really want, they know they can't earn the income in it, but they're in deep denial and going, yes, I'm willing to work 3 jobs and, 6-7 days a week because I want this degree so they can call into Dave Ramsey's show later so I can do reviews on them later because they've been holding this student loan that went from 50,000 to 80,000 in the 15, 20 years that they've had it. See, I have become, I won't say the word is critical. I like to think of it as open-minded. I've become much more open-minded in my 19 years of teaching, what will be 19 years in the next 2 weeks, in how students should move through the learning process. Okay. And again, I'm really talking high school. Middle school, we got to pretty much hold their hands, but we're talking high school. Kids that would normally, I'd say junior, senior year of high school. And is it possible that if we were to individualize, and I don't mean every student has their own plan. Let's not get crazy there, but I'm talking like, instead of just one graduation path, why can't we have 4 or 5 different forks in the road to get to graduation? Okay, one fork, you're going to go the scholarship, MBA, and all of that route. You want to be the corporate person. Another one's going to go the blue collar, hands-on trade route. Another one's going to go into beauty school. Do you see what I'm saying? Another one's going to be an entrepreneur. In other words, would it be so bad to broaden the different paths that students have in their junior and senior year to graduate? We don't all have to be alike. We don't all have to answer exactly 42 questions on the test. And is it possible that if we were to broaden the requirements for high school, in other words, tailor the requirements so that students have different choices on how they want to pursue, being a high school graduate, would it help us? And I bet it would. So it's really kind of a rhetorical question. Wouldn't it help the dropout rate? Because why do students drop out of school? Because what they're interested in isn't there. And yes, we can say, the home environment isn't nurturing. We can say they had bad teachers, pick something. But when it all comes right down to it, I like to think I'm one of the good teachers, but you understand what I'm saying, right? We can find all sorts of ways to blame as to why a student dropped out of high school. But what would happen if instead of just letting them walk out of high school because they can't sit in a chair for 8 hours a day and they can't pass that 50-question quiz that other people can pass, that 50, not a quiz, but, say state exam? Wouldn't it be different if we said, whoa, before you walk out that door, hey, you know what? I know you're really a hands-on person and you really, really love things that deal with plumbing and mechanics and stuff like that. Hey, we're going to put you on a path for that. No, you're not going to be stuck in foreign language. You're not going to be stuck taking math classes. No, Miss Horn is not going to be your teacher. That's me, for those who don't know. I'm Horn, okay? No, Miss Horn is not going to be your language arts teacher and having you write, 4-page essays about Hamlet or whatever, Wouldn't it be interesting how many students we could save if we broadened that? In other words, everything doesn't have to be exactly equal as long as it's fair. See, that's the way I look at it. Okay. Doesn't all have to be equal as long as it's fair. And it may be that for some students, maybe a lot of students that we miss through the educational cracks that wind up dropping out. That's one avenue. Or wind up, okay, they graduate, but then they have no other skill set. So then they go work some minimum wage job, or they graduate and then they go into college, but they really don't have the competitive nature to be in that particular field. And we've seen that too, where someone majors in a field and it's like, this isn't working for you. And then they drop out. Now they're stuck paying a college debt for something that they didn't even get a degree in, or they get a degree in it and they can't find a job in it. I mean, how many people slip through the cracks because we don't look at alternative ways to graduate? And wouldn't it be just, think about, we could have a graduation with, 4 or 5 different ways to get there, and it's all good. So what if the person who wants to, work on car mechanics didn't have to write a 10-page paper? Big deal. They did the requirements for the car mechanic. You see what I mean? I think, to me, that would be just absolutely fantastic.
Choosing a blue-collar career over college.
So there are about 2 million fewer students in a traditional 4-year university now than in 2011. So the total...
Why do we think there are 2 million fewer students in a university now? You know why? I think we all know it. And please share your thoughts in the comments. okay, about why you think there are fewer university students. I'm going to tell you, I think it's because colleges, in my opinion, look at the generation they have really, really messed over. That's the millennials, okay? Not so much Gen X. They really messed over the millennials, partly to blame because of the Gen X. And I take responsibility for that, even though I don't have kids or anything, okay? But we are a community here in the world, right? But they really screwed them over. And that it got them into tens of thousands of dollars worth of debt. And we can sit and debate all day. Well, you signed the paper, you knew. Okay, but let's put that aside. It's the fact that that generation was, and I will agree, they were told go to college, and then Gen Z still has some of it too. All right, so I just think that colleges are eating themselves alive. It's like a big old machine. People say corporations. If a corporation were to be a machine, it would just first it would eat all the little people, then it would eat everything equal to themselves until they would demolish themselves, because they have no stop button to say enough is enough. I think in some ways colleges, through their years of absolutely greedy tuition prices, their years of absolutely ridiculous, let's build a resort first and a college second, it's kind of like a corporate machine. It might very well be eating itself alive. So put in your comments, why do you think there is such a reduction in enrollment in colleges and colleges/universities? But I'm thinking more of universities, the big stuff, which they probably are intermittently referring to as a college.
All-in cost for a 4-year public school is about $110,000, whereas for
$110,000. This is a private. No, hold on. I think that
private school, it's about $225,000.
Okay, so $110,000 for a public 4-year school. That is obscene. And a private university, $225,000. That's I have no words. Sometimes I have to just say that. That is absolutely obscene. And then we have young people graduating from college with a mortgage. This is why young people don't have houses. They can't afford one. It's all in Sally Mae owns it, or the federal government owns it. Look at that figure, $225,000 to go to a private university. What degree, other than I can think of, as high-end medical? What, you tell me what profession other than high-end medical, what is it? Anesthesiologists, surgeons, the really high-end stuff. How are you going to pay off $250,000? And remember, folks, for all those of you that think, oh, I'll just pay it off really easy, I want you to remember this. Lots of property sits around 150, 200,000. Yes, even today. All right, even today. Not saying it's the property you want based on today's dollars, but lots of property. Okay. If a couple $100,000 were easy to get out of, people wouldn't have 30-year mortgages to pay off $200,000, $225,000. And this is before interest. Even getting a little $100,000 condo like I have. Okay. People take on many year mortgages for it. So it's really interesting to me as to why anybody would go, yes, I will go $200,000+. And don't forget, if you want to be a social worker, teacher, firefighter, you want to go into any public service job, do not go to a private university. You will be paid the same. You will be paid the exact same going to your private university as the person who went to just 2 years community college and then 2 years to a state. So if you are not looking to go into a career that commands a lot of money, and let's be realistic about it, I understand you really like music and you like playing your clarinet and you want a PhD in clarinet, okay? I get it. And you want to go to that private music school. Don't do it.
Tremper says that Gen Z is also responding to a market that is much more in need of skilled labor than it was in the past. Since 2019, average starting salaries for skilled workers has risen over 25%, from $18.70 an hour in 2019 to $23.43 an hour in 2025. Over that same period, net hiring for new blue-collar workers during graduation season has remained consistently higher than for white-collar workers of the same age.
Okay, let's all stop for a minute here. Look at the line. I've got my bifocals on, okay? So the blue line is for the trades, and look how much higher that blue line is. This is for those who may just be listening, okay? And then we have the purple line, which is for white collar workers, which of course is traditionally what the college degrees will focus on, are white collar jobs. You know, when my plumbing goes out, when I need my bathtub unplugged, it's not a white collar worker I need, it's a blue collar worker. As a matter of fact, if you really think about it, okay, it's probably, I think more in our day-to-day life, it's really a blue collar worker that we need. It's not the white collar worker that we need. And a lot of white collar jobs, as we know, can be easily outsourced. Really, if you think about it, in your day-to-day life, if you have an emergency, okay, it dawned on me not too long ago about this. I don't know why I was thinking about it, but okay, something goes wrong in your house. Your water, your AC, plumbing, okay? Do you need a white collar worker? No. In our day-to-day life, blue collar wins every single time. And it's really hard to replace blue collar with AI for home. Hey, I can you, matter of fact, I had a plumber here about, I don't know, 2 months ago. Maybe it wasn't even that long ago. They had to go back behind my fridge and cut off a little water pipe that had been back there. Okay. I needed a blue collar worker to do that. Yeah.
Also saw its biggest bump in 2020 and has remained strong, even as hiring for white-collar jobs has cooled over the past 2 years.
Colleges don't want you to know that. Colleges don't want you to see that statistic, which is really, really clear. You getting a college degree, you are most likely going to be out-earned by some man or woman who decided to go into a trade instead.
These folks are in high demand, right? They're able to find work because we need it. They're also gaining skills that are going to be increasingly necessary as baby boomers and older Gen X workers start aging out of the workforce. And it's time to really starting their own businesses.
You fix it? Okay.
Do you know, when I was growing up, I never even heard the term start your own business. It wasn't even a thought, just like debt freedom wasn't a thought. Oh, I checked my credit score the other day. It's holding steady at 802. Although, please remember that just because you have a high credit score does not mean you're debt free. Okay. It just means you manage your money real good. But in my case, okay, I'm also debt free. So that really, really helps. But when I was growing up, the idea of be self-employed, earn your own money, that was as foreign to me as the idea of debt freedom. It was, they were both foreign. I'd always had debt, so I was used to that. I hated it, but I was so used to it. And being self-employed, forget it. So these are concepts now. I'm hoping to, at least on this channel, I want to share the idea of debt freedom. Okay, a term I had never heard, and I had never heard about, being an entrepreneur. And it wasn't encouraged, motivated, or anything. As a matter of fact, I think I went my whole 4 years of college and never even heard of it, because the route, of high school, because the route was go to college.
Take 24-year-old Chase Gallagher. He started his lawn care business in Westchester, Pennsylvania at a young age.
When I got started in the landscaping industry, I was like 12 or 13 years old. So it grew from just 10 to 13 lawn mowing clients my first season to, by the time I was 18, 19, I had about 75, 82-ish. I convinced my mom to let me do online high school. I would work on my business 2 to 3 days out of the week. I'd go work for someone else the rest of the week, and then come home every night and do my online schooling while I ate dinner and on the weekends. And so this obviously helped me increase my income. And I think by like 16, 17, it was around 85 grand in revenue, 100 grand in revenue I was doing that year. And the very next year, my senior year, I think we brought in like 125 total.
By the time he graduated from high school, Chase says he had $120,000 in savings.
Hold on.
Rather than spend it on college tuition, he decided to invest it in starting his own business. In 2024, Chase's business, CMG Landscaping, brought in over $1 million in sales. Chase says he earned about $491,000 through his salary and owner's share. Morgan Brad.
And you're telling me that isn't the equivalent of a high school diploma? Why is it that what Chase just did, the equivalent of a high school diploma? Why isn't what Chase just did and all the different things that he had to do Why couldn't that be accepted as a high school diploma? Oh, I know why. Because it didn't go the college route, where a university could have him go for 4 years, go broke, and then he can be a working stiff over the next 10, 20 years. I give the first 10 years as a freebie. If you can pay off your debt in 10 years, I think that's pretty cool. Okay. But let's say the next 15, 20, 30, 35 years as he pays off his debt, trying to figure out what the bejesus went wrong. What went wrong was we didn't encourage you to simply use your own skills. And if you go to the description link where you can see the full interview as it is, his parents wanted him to go to college, but get this. They did not want to, if I understand the video correctly, okay, they did not want to pay for his college. They wanted him to go to college. And looking at his age, they're probably my age. They're probably the Gen Xers, because we Gen Xers went to college. They want him to do the same thing. And he's like, hey, then parents, you go pay for it. Well, his parents didn't want to pay for it. So he's like, well, I'm not going to pay for something you don't want to pay for. How many people are straddled right now with student loan debt, with college degrees that their parents said, go and get it, but their parents don't even want to pay off that degree? I'm willing a lot of students are, okay? Their own parents didn't want to pay for the degree, but you want the kid to go get the degree. You see the problem there? And Chase was smart enough to figure that out. He's like, hey, my parents don't want to pay for me to go to college. Sure, they want me to go, but I don't want to pay for it either. So he goes, I'm going to go build $1 million business. And by the time he graduates from high school, or shortly thereafter, he's got it. You tell me that what Chase did is not the equivalent of a high school diploma and then some. And just because it didn't require that he take a bunch of math, he take a bunch of history and science and yada, yada. Don't get me wrong. We teachers that are in that area, we are very, very passionate about our work and our expertise in our field and all of that. Okay. Very passionate. But I understand one thing. I understand it's not every passion of my students. I get it. And I even have to tell my students, hey guys, look, I understand I really love this. And I understand that maybe you aren't so into it. But just for right now, I need you to understand it. So that sometime in your later years, okay, you can decide if you want to revisit this or if you want to move on to something else. You see, because I understand that's not everybody's passion. So, like I said, I think Chase helps support my point of why can't we have different diploma paths for students, and that it doesn't have to all end up in the registrar's and financial aid office of some college campus because they built a great brick wall and they've got the biggest swimming pool on this side of the Mississippi.
Bradbury says she plans to stick with welding for the long haul, but also wants to pass along her skills to others.
I think it might be cool to have some sort of nonprofit startup for getting more females into welding. I think there needs to be more outreach of getting people into trades. I think that's a really important thing that I want to eventually step into.
And maybe
a historic
and perhaps even she can build her own business, and she will eventually take on a similar role to what Chase did. But instead of a lawn care business, she will decide, hey, you know what? I'm going to start a welding care business. And here's something else I want you to consider. And I got this idea from Ramsey because Ramsey has said it before. So it's not an original idea of mine. I always like to give credit if it's not an original idea of mine, but I did hear it. I've heard it time and time again on the Ramsey show. So Chase graduates from high school. He's built himself basically $1 million business. Okay. I wonder today, because this video was just about 2 weeks ago, I wonder today, and if not today, in the future, as Chase gets even more skilled and more mature and more experienced, because he's got grandiose plans even beyond this business. I wonder how many college students who can't pay their student loans will be working for him.
A historic drop in U.S. college enrollment.
U.S. college freshman enrollment is on the decline.
Many schools have seen those enrollment declines already.
Since the last half of the 20th century, a college degree has been touted as a must-have for a stable and successful career.
I did grow up around a lot of people telling me college was the route that you should go.
My parents were always hounding me about going to college. All the teachers reminded you about making sure you get good grades so you can pass elementary school, middle school, and go to college.
But earning that degree has become less and less attainable. Over the past decade, the average annual cost for a four-year private college has risen by about 42%. For public universities, it's gone up by about 30%. And jobs that traditionally require college degrees are no longer as reliable as they once were.
The market has really rewarded companies that announce layoffs.
So it may not be surprising that many in Gen Z, the youngest generation in the workforce, are saying no to the college experience. Instead, they're entering blue-collar jobs and skilled trades that don't require a four-year degree.
They're gaining skills that allow them to then go out and start their own business. And that really allows them the opportunity to set their earning potential as they go forward.
And as older blue-collar workers begin to retire, it may be that Gen Z rises to fill the skilled labor gap.
You better start welding.
Yeah.
As a teenager, Morgan Bradbury was weighing going to college for either engineering or physical therapy. But it was while she was working on becoming an Eagle Scout that she discovered what would become her new career.
They had a welding merit badge there, and I was like, oh, fire, that sounds pretty fun. I just immediately was like mesmerized by the fact that I could have the ability to build things with my own hands and kind of put together the engineering side of my brain and the hands-on side of my brain. I thought it was just instantly something really cool to do.
Instead of going to a four-year college after high school, as she was planning to do, Morgan took a 9-month welding certification course at Universal Technical Institute, a for-profit trade school. The $22,000 price tag for tuition wasn't cheap, but it was also a fraction of what she would have paid for 4 years of university schooling. Morgan landed a job as a third-class welder with BAE Systems before she had even finished her certification. At 19 years old, she was earning about $57,000 a year. Now, 2 years later, she's a second-class welder, working on U.S. Navy ships in Norfolk, Virginia.
I have certifications in almost every type of welding that we do here.
Morgan isn't alone among her peers in choosing a blue-collar career over college.
So there are about 2 million fewer students in a traditional four-year university now than in 2011. So the total all-in cost for a four-year public school is about $110,000. Whereas for a private school, it's about $225,000.
Tremper says that Gen Z is also responding to a market that is much more in need of skilled labor than it was in the past. Since 2019, average starting salaries for skilled workers has risen over 25%, from $18.70 an hour in 2019 to $23.43 an hour in 2025. Over that same period, net hiring for new blue-collar workers during graduation season has remained consistently higher than for white-collar workers of the same age. It also saw its biggest bump in 2020 and has remained strong, even as hiring for white-collar jobs has cooled over the past 2 years.
These folks are in high demand, right? They're able to find work because we need it. They're also gaining skills that are going to be increasingly necessary as baby boomers and older Gen X workers start aging out of the workforce, and it's time to really starting their own businesses.
You fix it? Yeah, okay.
Take 24-year-old Chase Gallagher. He started his lawn care business in Westchester, Pennsylvania at a young age.
When I got started in the landscaping industry, I was like 12 or 13 years old, so it grew from just 10 to 13 lawn mowing clients my first season to by the time I was 18, 19, at about 75, 82-ish. I convinced my mom to let me do online high school. I would work on my business 2 to 3 days out of the week. I'd go work for someone else the rest of the week, and then come home every night and do my online schooling while I ate dinner and on the weekends. And so this obviously helped me increase my income, and I think by like 16, 17, it was around 85 grand in revenue, 100 grand in revenue I was doing that year. And the very next year, my senior year, I think we brought in like 125 total.
By the time he graduated from high school, Chase says he had $120,000 in savings. Rather than spend it on college tuition, he decided to invest it in starting his own business. In 2024, Chase's business, CMG Landscaping, brought in over $1 million in sales. Chase says he earned about $491,000 through his salary and owner's share. Morgan Bradbury says she plans to stick with welding for the long haul, but also wants to pass along her skills to others.
I think it might be cool to have some sort of nonprofit startup for getting more females into welding. I think there needs to be more outreach of getting people into trades. I think that's a really important thing that I want to eventually step into.